Nice job. Jim Richard sent that for us to look at. So just add it to your inserts.
This is what Pat's gonna,
What's that?
this is what Pat's gonna talk about.
Oh, okay.
It's a guide.
Perfect. Let me go.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's Tuesday, September 21st. Regular city council meeting. Call to order. Lizzie, you wanna start?
Sure, Lizzie Fukier.
Jim Richards.
Ryland Nyquist.
Lori Novak. Dana Bergner.
Next time is our agenda. And we've got one move and couple pads. But first of all, I'd like to move the water and sewer up. Excuse me, from L to, after the EOC and before the Personnel Community Center. Hold Joel ahead for his couple items.
I would ask if we
And-
can amend.
I'm sorry.
Can we amend and take some of this that's not critical? Because it looks like we're gonna be here a while. If we could move it to the next.
As we go through those, let me finish with my pads.
Sure, I'm sorry. I thought you
So-
were done.
Under J, I'd like to add item V15, which is a Riverwood Hills water looping final payment. That's under, it's under L, I'm sorry.
Say it one more time, Ryland, under L.
Under water and sewer, L, it's add Riverwood Hills water looping final payment. And I'd like to add to ordinances and resolutions, resolution 2021-24, which is regarding a second public hearing for our wastewater project. One more add under public works for 2 chlorine pumps. Public works is I. Good to ask to your question. We've identified, you're right, that our lot of items are FYIs, and we will go through those very quickly with just one comment. With no discussion. There's several under personnel. Parks and Trails has one. And I'm forgetting to talk about the unfinished and the new business items. So is there a second for those agenda items that I mentioned?
Second.
Just from a discussion standpoint, and I'm just as guilty as everybody, we really need to continue to emphasize the need to get agenda items in here by Thursday before the council meeting. I know there's some items that have come up recently, and they're important, but at the same time, we really need to adhere to our deadline on Thursday. Yeah,
Nope, 3, we send the packet, so we need the items by noon.
noon, okay,
Yep.
noon on Thursday.
Yep.
With that, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? All right, thank you. First item is our public forum. The 3-minute time limit per person, the city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names that may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your concerns. We also request that your comments be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be recognized only once. At this time, we ask that anyone who would like to address the city council to please step up to the podium and state your name and address and fill out the form that's on the podium. So, with that, is anybody? Second call for a public forum. And third call for public forum. And that will close at 6:36. Sergeant Chambers is here today. So if you'd like to, we're going to be talking speeding a little bit later on, but if you just have some general comments. Under streets and roads, we're going to talk about speeding update.
Hopefully I'll be able to stick around. We're pretty short today, so.
Okay,
Leave,
Chair,
sorry.
whatever time you have, we appreciate it.
To go, but yeah, we conducted another speed radar test or sign on Summer Hills Drive. Got quite a few cars. I think it was like 1,200 cars or something through there, so a lot of cars worth of data for you guys to look at there. I haven't heard of anything lately. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on anybody chasing people down or anything like that. Seems like that's kind of calmed down, so that's good.
Yeah.
We've been pretty quiet up here, other than just some of the normal catalytic converter theft still, and some of those kind of minor thefts that we're having. So other than that, it sounds like Orinoco Gold Rush days went off pretty well.
Yep.
So, but I can certainly comment on, I'll try and stick around for the talk on the speed table and whatnot, and I guess give you some of my insights on that,
Okay,
if you have any questions.
we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, Fire Chief?
Good evening, everybody. All right, so last month we had 2 calls. We had a rear end accident right in front of the RV dealer. It was, that's the 910 one. Basically, somebody was turning into the RV place and somebody driving on the front of the road, see that they were turning, and so smashed into it. Somebody had a little bit of back pain, but otherwise it was a car versus a pickup, and the truck you couldn't even tell, scratch bumper, but the car was mashed, and so we basically just leaking radiator fluid. So that was that one. So nothing too critical there. And then about a month before that, in early August, we had somebody with fire alarms going off, and so most of the homes, your smoke alarms are connected. So if one goes off, they all go off. This was a detector that was so old, it didn't even have a date. Most detectors have a date that would tell you when it needs to, when it was made, and then 10 years later, you're supposed to get rid of it. This one didn't even have a date, so that tells you it was ancient. So we basically gave them a detector and said, go to Menards, and they did. They went button detectors. So that was that call. So again, luckily, nothing. So then that's why the city, if you saw in the city thing, I put a little flyer, both the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, just constant reminder, they're 7 to 10 year life. So not only do you need batteries, you need to look at the dates on those things. Okay, the next thing is the quote for air conditioner. So King got the quote, but I think we had talked about when we got the rolling doors on the little break room, the kitchen area, that trying to make that kind of a Most places have a meeting room. We don't really have a meeting room. So we, can, especially in the winter time, we can kind of make that room a little warmer. And so I think they were gonna, change some ductwork. Looking at, it'd be sure nice to have some air coming in to that room, especially in the summer. I mean, we've ever had a meeting, and Jim can attest, some of our meetings get a little sticky, over there, and, Gold Rush. So I think that'd be money well spent to have that little room. All we need is one. We have 3 doors, or 3 exits. 2 have doors already, so we just need to find 1 door, and then, probably just stick a ductwork. And so you see the quote, looks like the quote is to run, something in. I'm not exactly sure, how they're gonna do it, but it comes out of, so the fire department holds the building budget. So it's my line item, but the city essentially kind of controls the expenses. And so I looked, and we have more money than the bid for this different thing. So I think it'd be a useful thing for our building. I don't see us getting a new fire hall anytime soon. So anything we can do to make it more comfortable for the spring meetings and those type of things, I think would be helpful. Any questions on that?
Make a motion to approve the Ornico heat and air quote for $4,200.
Second.
Question? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Thank you. Then the next one was kind of a 2-part. So the first part is just an FYI. So we're going to start evangelizing. We didn't get to do our open house for Fire Prevention Week last year because of COVID, but we're going to try it this year. So it's always that first week of October. It's kind of a national thing. So if you look at other departments around the country, they're all going to have something going on. Some do pancake breakfast, some do open houses, some do little stuff, some do a lot, some go visit schools. And so what we do is we typically have a night, we serve some kind of small stuff. So we do walking tacos. We can do some, we're learning each time. So I think one year we did like scooped ice cream, and that was terrible. So now we went to this like free-form where here I can hand it to you, you can walk away, versus having load your own ice cream. Walking tacos are easy. We get Tina Stoll kind of lead. She does a lot of, she tries to have stations where we can actually learn stuff. So this year, we're probably not going to do anything inside. We're probably going to try and keep everybody outside. So we'll do our squirt the water, squirt the fire extinguisher, look at the trucks, those type of things. So that, and then every year, the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, has a theme. And so this year is Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety. So focusing on different detectors. So if you have somebody that's hard of hearing, they have detectors that are more loud than the normal one. If you have somebody that's hard, that maybe is deaf, they have ones with lights that can blink. And so it's kind of just making sure that people know that there are alternative options to just the normal fire alarm smoke detectors. And then since we've been, a couple of times we've had things about budget and budget requests and, expenses more than $500. So it looks like it slipped down to EOC, but it was actually supposed to be in mine. So we approved Tina to spend up to $2,000, out of my general equipment budget for the stuff for Fire Prevention Week. So again, we give out helmets, little red hats. We give out some bags with some pencils. We're going to try and reuse some leftover hamburger that we froze from, that was still frozen from Gold Rush. And so, but there's, things that we buy. And so this comes out of my budget, and I didn't think any one particular item was be more than 500, but I thought, I should, bring it forward and let you know. So I'm not sure if we've done that in the past. Again, a lot of you weren't around 2 years ago when we were doing this. I also thought, I just made the recommendation, which is probably how it got worded is, if you wanted to, some departments actually have it as a separate line item in their budget. So I don't have a line item for Fire Prevention Week. I just have general equipment or general something. So I just made the suggestion that, if in the future, if you guys wanted to have a separate line item with 2,000 or 2,500, you could do that if you wanted to, versus me, and I probably still would ask for permission if it's more than $500. But so I guess I'd like permission to make sure that I can spend up to $2,000 for miscellaneous things for Fire Prevention Week coming up. Hopefully that makes sense.
I make a motion that we allow the $2,000 spend.
Second.
Okay. So it's a budget expenditure.
So it's a budget,
Asking for a
it's
line.
budgeted expenditure that I don't have a separate budget item, but it comes out of my budget, so
We
yes.
should get one for that.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
that,
I agree with you. No, I'm just saying, I agree. Very good idea.
This is one of those regular, just like equipment and training and
Any other comments? All those in favor of the additional line item for fire department expenditures, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
good, thank you. So you got young kids or no young kids, send them our way, yeah, have fun, come on down, see the hours there. And then we had a member resign and I was kind of expecting it, so we have two guys on our department, both that are trying to go to either gone to school or going to school to be full-time firefighters, so I kind of knew that their time would be short-lived. So Zach lives in the township, but he was on our department about a year, got some experience, and he's trying to get on full-time at a department, so he just got a house up in the cities with some other guys that are also trying to get on the fire department up there. And so he, as of last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, he's moved to the cities. So I kind of knew it, didn't cost me anything, and we gave him used gear, and we got his experience, he helped out where he could, so sad to see him go, but also sad to see him go do what he wants to do. So I guess I'd like approval for the resignation of Zach Dunford.
I make a motion that we approve Dan Dunford's resignation.
Is it Zach or
It's Zach.
Dan?
It's Zach. Yeah, the first one came out with Dan, and then she corrected it to Zach.
Zach, okay.
Oh, I still have that.
Second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approved?
She just likes the name Dan so much, just wants to. All right, next one. So this is good news then. So it doesn't always happen that I lose a member and then I gain some members. And so 2 members, they live over kind of by the Orinoco auction. They sent the city an email saying that they were interested. So I had a good discussion with them during Gold Rush on what it takes to be, first responder and fire department. So husband and wife, I said, think about it and come on down. So at our meeting, they submitted their applications. So Danielle wants to be a first responder and a firefighter. She's currently at Mayo, I think he's a nurse practitioner at Mayo. And then her husband Kent, he just wants to be firefighter guy, which is fine. He also works at Mayo, so kind of excited. So I had a good conversation. We approved them at our meeting. And so for fire departments, we haven't had a first responder meeting yet to officially accept Danielle. I guess I'd like to have Kent and Danielle Johnson approved for the fire department.
Make a motion to approve Kent and Danielle Johnson for the fire department.
Second,
Second.
Lori? That's great news. Glad to hear that for you.
Yes. Yes, it always is.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
And I was texting Chris. I didn't see the run count, so I'm not sure.
No, we emailed him twice. He didn't get back to us. He
Okay.
usually does, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so it was higher than normal because we had all of those Gold Rush.
Yeah.
We had, like 4 on Friday alone. So our numbers, I think they were over 10, it was probably 15. If you look over the month between our normal calls and then the 5 or 6 that we contributed. That's all I can respond. All right, I'll turn it over to Pat.
My name is Pat McGovern. I'm the ELC director and also the gambling manager, so that's why I'm on here a couple of times. And my request was for $1,100 generator. It's a portable Honda generator. We have one, but we could also use another one. I wonder what we use them for. If a basement's flooding, they work out really great because we do have garbage pumps that pump out 4-inch. They're 4-inch diameters, but they're hard to work with and they're hard to get going. You have to, they're a hard suction pump. So they pump a lot of water very quickly, but the trouble is when you put it in a basement, the hose is that big. And so it's very difficult to get the water level down to where it's a reasonable level. So what we could do instead is put in a submersible pump that pumps 1.5 inches, which is like twice your garden hose. And they're electric. We run them off a generator and they can pump very quickly. We could help put up 2 of those and be pumping within about 30 seconds. So they work great. The Honda generators are reliable. They run 8 hours on a tank of gas. They also cycle down when they're not running something that's heavy duty. They'll also cycle up when there is something that's running that draws a lot of electricity. So they're a very good unit. We have one, but we could always use another one. Right now, we have 3 electric pumps and we have 2 garbage pumps. Like I said, the garbage pumps are great because they move a lot of water quickly, but the trouble is the hoses are very hard to work with and they only go down to about 4 inches of water and then you're stuck with 4 inches of water in your basement. So that's why I was making a request to buy another generator. They're about $1,100. At the time when I submitted this, Northern Hydraulic was running, you spend $1,000, they give you a $100 gift card. I was gonna give that gift card to Dan because I know we need a pressure washer at the fire out. But since then they quit running that special. So they've got another special now. It's like $50 off or something like that. But I just wait until they run something that is, you know, yeah, so we get a little incentive to buy.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the Honda generator.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
The next item on here says gambling funds update. I'm not quite sure what that means. One of the things that Jim and I had talked about is he was at a recent meeting a few months ago. And we were looking for something else in gambling. And I came across this guideline for the cities to spend your 10%. I know like a year ago, I came here and asked for that 10% because we're the ones that actually accrue the funds. And finding out that that's not correct either. So I'm not sure if this is this in your packet? Where it talks about what gambling funds can be used for.
We've got this, that was in that email.
Well, let me hand you this. You don't mind sharing a few of you? But this tells you exactly, it's from Minnesota Gambling Control Board, and tells you exactly what you can spend your money on. That 10% that you get from the fire department.
We're correct, the gambling entity in town.
Right, yeah, any gambling entity.
And I just want to make a point. This is not to be said that we're spending it wrong. I don't know how we're spending it, but I thought it was good that he come and share it with us. So not all of us will always be here, but I think it's good for the city council and the city clerk's office to know.
Yeah, when I talked a year or two, a year and a half ago about that, I thought you guys could just donate it back to the fire department. That's not accurate either. You can't give it back to us.
So could you give us?
Right, yeah, that's correct. It's unless it's a special fund, but then there's stipulations on a special fund, what you could use it for too.
Yeah, it talks about you'd have to buy a special, like a fire truck. If you put it in a donation fund, and then you bought us a fire truck and made the check out to a specific vendor, then it would be okay. But to just put it back in our bank account,
Could it be used for the fire department education night out?
yes. As long as it's for children under the age of 21,
Right.
yes.
So Pat, could you just summarize, just in a nutshell, what can we spend it on? Donations, things of that nature?
Well, it goes through a whole list right on here, and I don't want to read it all.
No,
for
you don't have to. I mean, just in
Remember
general.
at the time when I talked a year or so ago, I told you that 88% of the cities don't collect this money? And I thought that was rather high at the time. Well, now I know why. Because once we give you that money, it now becomes another thing for you to do. It might be easier not to take it. But if, if Warren Fire isn't the one doing the gambling, and some other outside group comes in, you probably want to take that 10%, and then you guys would decide who you would donate it to. What exactly you could do with it. It also talks about that you, well, as a city, you should have been reporting this money every year.
It's probably in our, I mean, the pull tab donations is part of our.
It's in
You're
our
not on
audit.
the list. This is a list from the Minnesota. And Orinoco's not on here. I'll give this to you.
Thank you.
Attached is the form that you need to fill out
Okay.
and send it to the government or send it to the control board. It tells you the specific dates.
They audit it every year. We did reports on them, but as far as this part, I don't know. There's no notes or nothing on it from Sandy, so.
I know that you didn't know.
No, I didn't know.
And Sandy told me directly that that money is going to city parks. And that says, like the first paragraph down on the bottom, after what you can send it to, it tells you you can't spend it on city parks.
Pat.
So, you know, I don't know what you guys want to do about it, but I think that,
It's a good point, and what you're asking for is we need to change our ordinance. We have a code 130.007, which talks about the 10%. Derived from lawful gambling in the city to fund administered and regulated by city without cost to the fund. Point B, it says the city shall disperse the funds for lawful purposes as defined by Minnesota statute 34.9.12, subdivision 25 may be amended. Payment upon this section should be made quarterly. The city's use of the funds should be determined at the time of adoption of city's annual budget or when the budget is amended, so.
But
So right
like,
now it goes in,
but like Pat was saying, if it's not the fire department, we probably would want to collect those funds. So I don't know if changing the ordinance.
We change the ordinance and don't accept it, then we don't have to worry about it, is what he's saying. They're gonna use it. What,
Right, but what is the chance that you won't be doing gambling? Because I know that we've talked about that.
yeah, 75-25. I can't talk a lot about what we're doing right now, but we have hired an attorney. And we are planning to have a civil case against the complainant at this point.
So that goes into our next item. But I will say in a nutshell, it sounds like Pat is basically telling us, if we take it, we have to donate it. We can't really use it. It doesn't sound.
Yeah, and they give you a nice list of all the
Yeah.
places you could do, you know, what you could do with it, like the food shelf is on here,
Mhm,
which would be great, you know, that's great.
absolutely.
Yeah, or if you want to replace either, you know, that it says that you can't give it to the park department, you know, per se for like mowing and that kind of thing, but for equipment. And you know that the equipment at a park's gonna wear out eventually. You could put it in a fund and then say when the equipment wears out, we have a fund to replace it. Or if we want to change it, or, you know, whatever happens that way. But the check has to be made to a specific vendor, not to like general fund Parks Department.
I wonder if we could use something like that for like picnic tables. or
Lawnmower?
I don't know. a
Oh.
lawnmower,
So-
but even the
we can
poker
spend our
station.
10% gambling funds on law enforcement.
You could.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Look at him smile. Mark's
We
smiling.
need that.
There's our
We're
budget.
just talking
Speed
about,
limit signs, I mean, sir.
I,
You guys need to talk about it, see what you
Yeah.
feel, you know, I'm not,
Thank you though for.
yeah,
thank you, sir,
I
but-
wasn't aware. I thought what we were doing was okay until I stumbled across this and found out it wasn't.
And my concern was audits, you know, just to keep us safe.
Uh-huh,
I thought it was good that he would come and talk.
for sure.
Okay,
Yes.
and then it says legal funds, I don't know what that means, Jill. Legal fee help?
Yeah, it's legal fee help. Rylan, did you have another question for Pat?
yeah, I was gonna say, because the way our ordinance is written, they're both tied to this Minnesota statute
Thank you.
349.12, because that's in our current ordinance. It's just that we have the ordinance in place, so we can disperse the funds per this, what you showed us already in our ordinance. It's just that we haven't done it.
Well, you
If I
can't
read it
continue,
correctly.
you can't continue to do it the way you have been doing it.
Well, that may be true.
I mean, you have a lawyer here.
Yeah, I'm saying that we need to look at it, that's for sure. And I think that's, but I'm just saying that there's some things that we have an ordinance that we can maybe refine the language a little bit or whatever, identify where it should go, how it could be dispersed based on what you shared with us. So I agree with what you're saying. It's just we need to decide how we want to disperse it or how we want to disperse it. And
Well, it says right here, Rylan, a city may not transfer 10% lawful gambling funds to other city accounts. For example, its own Parks and Rec department. And that's what you're doing. I'm looking at the second bullet.
Yeah, and if you look at the spreadsheet.
oh, I'm sorry,
piece,
okay.
in the spreadsheet piece says the funds may only be spent by the city or the county for charitable contributions as defined in
Mhm.
section 349.12.
Okay, we need to look at it. Fire truck, playground equipment. So Mike, would you be able to help us out here? And
We have a lawyer in our firm that really knows everything about these relief associations. So I'll ask her to put an opinion together or just a memo about what you need to do.
Okay. And,
Right, you're not gonna decide tonight. There's no use.
no, we just,
No.
thanks for bringing it to our attention. I think we need to take a look at it and we'll get back with you or if I make sure you got the right language. In the meantime, we can become more familiar with this guide that Pat gave us to see how we want to, where we want to consider. There's a lot of different examples of how we can use it, that's for sure.
And maybe instead of putting it in the equipment fund, that you have a different fund set up that you could just keep earmarking it for that. Because I noticed on the spreadsheet that it was going into the equipment fund, the last 3 checks. So that might be better.
Mhm.
I don't think they should go in the equipment fund.
No.
Okay, we've
No,
taken care of, okay. all right.
I don't mean to surprise anybody by this and it's certainly not your fault. I realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think just for the sheer information that we're getting, I think we needed to have you come talk about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
I think the one thing we've learned about gambling is we want to do things the right way.
So that leads you to your next one.
Touche.
And that is what,
So the next agenda item is the legal fee help. So the reason I wanted this on here is to see if the city would be willing to help the fire department on the legal fees, the retainer.
I mean,
Well, I looked into it a little bit. And
Can we even?
what's that?
Are we allowed to? I guess.
Oh, yeah, you can
Okay.
look. I just went out and looked at, there's a special relief association special fund. Which you may be familiar with. It's Minnesota statute 424A.05. And it talks about how you can use the special funds for. Is that what you're thinking about, how you would want to accept a donation? Because it's pretty clear, it's not. There's one phrase here, this is where Mike can help us out too, for the payment of administrative expenses of the Relief Association is authorized under subdivision 3B, so I'm a novice attorney, of course, but I don't see, and we don't want to violate any stipulations on how you can use special funds for relief associations, but I don't see where they, because it says there's,
So Ryland, you emailed me about this and we talked about it. And then we emailed, might have been with you. I don't know who we emailed with, but somebody, they said they're not requesting that, so I didn't look into it.
All right.
You recall this?
yes, yes.
Yeah, so you thought that that was gonna be a request. I was gonna review it and then review the American Rescue Plan scope of that as well.
All right, that was me.
That was you. So
Yeah.
then, yeah, so you replied and said you weren't requesting that though.
It has nothing to do with COVID.
Right, okay, so are we looking into this or I guess I'm confused at this point.
I think Pat's asking us, but
I'm not asking for anything, actually.
I asked
We
Pat to
really-
come to see and talk about this and to see if the city would be willing to help them out, because they have to come up with, what is it, $7,500? And, you know, they have it, but it's going to really cut into the fire department's fund.
So generally to do a donation, that would be donating. I mean, they're a separate legal entity in the city,
Right.
so that's a donation. So for any donation that you make, you have to, number one, have a public purpose. And there's arguably not a public purpose here, but maybe you could color a public purpose. And then second, you have to have some statutory authority for it. And there's statutes, there's a whole bunch of statutes that allow cities to make donations for all kinds of reasons. I have not researched this particular, I was going to research it and then I thought we were called off, so I didn't research it. But it would be in that chapter, the Fire Relief Association chapter, because they are allowed, donations are allowed.
Mhm.
What Ryland is saying is that the scholarly article he sent me basically said, you can put them in the special fund, which has to be used for the pension fund. That's a segregated fund for the pensions of the Relief Association. So that's allowed. That's an example of a donation that's allowed.
Mhm.
So there's a statute that says you can do it. So absent a statute that says you can do that, I don't think you can. But I was going to research that, but I thought he said he wasn't requesting it, so then I didn't research it. So I don't know.
Okay. And one thing I will say, you know, Pat brought up at the meeting there, what is it, legal fees? And there's a legal, is it legal fee insurance that's part of that, but you were told that you couldn't use that.
So originally what we did is we wrote a $7,500 check out of the gambling account, thinking that we could pay for gambling legal fees because it was a gambling item. There is a line item that says legal fees. And to us, it's a legal fee. So last minute, I just emailed the Gambling Control Board and asked them, is it okay if we pay attorney fees out of the gambling fund?
What they say.
No. No, yeah. And so after we got that decision, I wanted the statute number to say that, you know, where does it say that we can't do that?
Well, relief associations, I mean, I've dealt with those before. They do hire their own attorneys
Right.
to represent them. I mean, generally, I don't provide legal advice to a
Right.
relief association. And cities ask me to do this all the time. The reason I don't is they're a separate entity and there's a conflict of interest. You're my client, they're not my client, so they need their own lawyer. Now, there's limited circumstances where I could provide them legal advice, but I certainly can't initiate a lawsuit against somebody if that's what you're doing, against a former employee or whatever. Is that what's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so they have to, I mean, I think they have the right, I mean, like I say, relief associations hire lawyers all the time. It might just be where you're getting the money from. You can't use it from that fund.
and that's what we did.
Yeah. Okay.
So after they said no, then we wrote it out of the Relief Association, the $7,500 retainer.
Right.
So we're proceeding with that lawsuit currently. So I think right now we're okay financially. And I don't know how all this works, but one of the things we'd hoped would be, is the judgment is for us, that they pay our legal services. And maybe that's just out of the
Okay,
question.
contingency fee?
Yeah,
Yeah, did you ask them that?
well, I haven't met with him yet.
You paid him money without,
I've talked to him several times on the phone,
you haven't
yes.
paid him any money yet.
Oh, yeah,
Oh. He's your lawyer then?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't give advice on it.
No, I'm not asking for advice. I'm just saying is that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
We're not in the, you know, the business of being sued or suing someone else, so we're not all quite sure.
So you might not need the money if they'll take it on a contingency fee.
Right,
But if they won't take it on a contingency fee, you're gonna ask them how much it's gonna cost.
yes,
Yeah. Okay, so it might be a little early until you know that.
exactly.
Yeah, because we don't know what's. But the idea was, you know, can the city help with it? Offset their 7,500.
Maybe,
And maybe we don't.
I guess we're gonna take a look at it. I can't tell you right now.
maybe. So should we answer that question too, when we look
Yes,
at
please,
the
let's take a
fund?
look at that. All right, we'll get back with you, Mike. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
All right. Joe.
All right, good evening, yeah. Sewer water stuff. First thing on the agenda tonight is to really review this memo that is in your packet. Does everybody have a copy of this memo?
Yep, give us a second.
I do have extras if you can't locate it or
We do.
want one of mine. I do have extras, they're printed in current color, so that helps too.
Is it in the main packet or what?
It should be.
The main-
I will hand these out because otherwise I'm just gonna throw them away.
I
Does
have it.
anybody need it, Jim?
Oh, I'm sure it's in here.
Take it, otherwise I'll throw it away.
Okay. Let's see something.
Okay, so really, this memo really summarizes the bid opening that we had for the wastewater project as well as the associated water main improvements. So on August 25th, 26th, and September 2nd, we opened bids on 3 separate contracts. Contract 1 is essentially the wastewater treatment facility. Contract 2 is the sanitary sewer and the water main improvements, as well as some river restoration improvements, essentially on the south half of the city. Contract 3 is the north half of the city, sewer, water, and river restoration improvements, okay? And so we did have a fair amount of interest on the contracts, and you can see in the second column, those are the bids that we did receive. So contract 1, the low bid was about 20,667,000. And I should also mention that there are letters within the packet that essentially summarize the bid. So you can see who was first, second, third, and fourth. I won't go through that level of detail. I also handed out a formal bid tabulation of all those. So that's essentially all of the background paper that goes into these calculations. I don't want to dwell on that or go into any great detail on that, but just to let you know that it is there. So contract 2 was about let's just talk in round numbers, $9.2 million. Contract 3 was about $8 million. So a total of about $37.9 million in construction costs. Now, there were alternate bids in one of the contracts. And so that means you can award the bid based on the total base bid plus any combination of the alternate bids. There was only one alternate bid that was in contract 3 for some enhancements to the grinder station control panels. And so you can see that was about $32,000. And then on all of the contracts, the contractors were allowed to submit substitute items. And those substitute items are essentially take the place of a specified manufacturer or specified manufacturer. So for example, if you produce a certain kind of valve and you are one of the 3 or 4 producers or manufacturers that are pre-qualified to submit the valve, well, the prime contractor could submit that valve for use on the project and either increase or decrease the cost depending on what it did. Typically, the thought is that people would submit substitute items for items that decrease the net cost and therefore incentivizing the owner for selecting them. Well, we had very few alternate or substitute items really submitted, none by the low bidder that actually decreased the cost. The second bidder, they had a few that would ultimately decrease the cost as far as the substitute items, but it wouldn't change who the low bid was. And so as we discussed it with the Sewer and Water Committee, the Sewer and Water Committee was in favor of, or they would like to see the alternate bid awarded with that enhanced control panel for the grinder station. So in that case, including that alternate bid, we would be looking at a total low bid plus alternate for contract 3 of about $37,888,000 some odd dollars. Okay, now if we continue on with the table, you can see the second to last column is the engineer's estimate. And so you can see that compares to an engineer's estimate of about $33,616,000. And the last column shows you how much over the engineer's estimate the actual bids were. Okay, so for example, contract 1 was about 13.9% over. The total was about 12.5% over the engineer's estimate. Okay, and so that's a fairly significant amount of money. And so, roughly, the totals are in here, roughly $4 million or $3.9 million over the estimate. Okay, and again, that's about 12.5%. So then if we kind of go through a process and we calculate the estimated project costs are construction costs plus a contingency for construction plus non-construction costs. So non-construction costs are engineering, property acquisition, legal costs, soil borings, everything under the sun that goes into feeding the project. So the first item that I'd really want to draw your attention to that I would like some input on would be the contingency. So right below the table, we kind of go down these line items. I'll kind of walk through these. So what I am kind of recommending is a 2.5% construction contingency. And so that helps us have budget for items that come up during construction. It's a big project. There will be unknowns. Things will happen. We'll spend additional money here or there, okay? Obviously, we always endeavor not to do that, but it happens. And so a 2% contingency is a reasonably healthy contingency. I have a 2.5% contingency. You see that that's real money. That's almost $9.5 million for almost $1 million, $950,000. And so, is 2.5% the right number? Well, we don't know. I think it's a reasonable number. We could obviously increase that or decrease that based on whatever the city wishes. Another thing to kind of note as we consider the contingency. I know the construction costs are over budget. I have reached out to the contractors and we've been looking at things to essentially value engineering, to value engineer the construction project. And so are there things that the contractors observed that maybe we could cut some costs on, do something different, use a different product? Talking with some of the suppliers, some of the contractors, it does look like there's a few things that we could do differently to decrease that construction cost. And, my gut feel is as we go through that process, we might be able to identify $200,000, $300,000 worth of value engineering items for the city to consider. Well, that in and of itself compared to a $37 million project isn't a lot, but it's something. And you could also look at that in the same light as the construction contingency. And so, let's say we identify $250,000 and we already have a $950 million or $950,000 contingency. Well, that $950,000 plus $250,000 is, it's really $1.2 million contingency, which is more than we think we probably need. So one of the items is just a little bit of feedback on the council as to where you really want to fall in terms of the amount of contingency. Now, I will also note that this is just for budgetary purposes. If we go through the project, we can always modify the loan and, increase or decrease the cost. So PFA, they'll loan us the money to do the project if the costs are higher or lower than what we're projecting. The contingency doesn't matter. The loan's actually based on what we draw, okay? But where this does kind of come into play is when we calculate assessments, having that contingency could swing from, I think responsibly $750,000 all the way up to $1.5 million. And so that adds $750,000 to the project cost. And so then you essentially calculate things based on that. Now, at the end of the day, when we do the actual assessment, we will base things on the actual construction cost. So we'll have that information. So again, we're still estimating, but how conservatively do we want to estimate the project cost? And so, I'm fine with sticking with 2.5%. I'm fine with going with 2%, knowing that we're gonna try to value engineer and still have a pretty healthy, contingency. Any feedback on that?
Is the 2.5% something Stantec has used on other large projects, something like this?
All projects are a little unique. This project is largely a new project where, everything is starting from scratch. And so, some of the times the contingency factor really builds into, tying into existing conditions. And, we don't have existing conditions to tie into here, but, undoubtedly when we're digging through the streets, we're going to find things that we never dreamed of in terms of, you might be finding fuel barrels or hitting contaminated materials or finding a rock where you didn't expect it, or, God knows what, digging up old buried cars.
But even if we choose 2.5% as our contingency and we hit all these obstacles, all of a sudden it's $1.3 million over, we're still gonna pay for it.
We do.
So it doesn't really, I don't say it's a moot point, but I think it's just something that we.
It is, and it's just how conservative we want to be at this point in the game. And I picked this number. That was my I feel good about that number. And I could feel good about it, maybe even 2%, but it's not my choice ultimately. If you have an opinion, if you want to do something else, I'll do it. That's why I bring it up.
I think from the feedback from the committee was that they felt as a whole that it was a good number.
Okay.
I think
Yeah, I
when we
think
were
so
having
too.
our discussions, they felt like everything is going up right now. Construction costs are going up. And so to lower that contingency number seemed a little foolish, knowing that we're already, everything is high. So I think planning for it.
The nice part now is we actually have, kind of fixed costs from the bidding standpoint. We went through the bidding process. We've got, bids, but things happen. We all know that. And we want to have a responsible contingency. So if this is the number we want to go with and roll with it, I'm good with that. I just wanted to.
Let's go with that one unless somebody has some objection.
And then, so we go from that, and then we add in the non-engineering costs or the non-construction costs. So that's about a $7.3 million number. The actual number that we're at right now is actually 7.358. So I indicated in this that was an estimate over the last week. We've kind of firmed up that number. So the non-construction cost or the construction cost plus the contingency plus the non-engineering costs yields the project cost. So the current project costs are about $46.19 million. Then we subtract out all of the grant dollars that we have received, the 2017, 2018, 2020 bonding bill grants, the $7 million point source implementation grant. And then we get, how we get to the local share. The local share equates to about just under $12.2 million, which constitutes about 26.3% of the project costs. And so the grant dollars are essentially paying for 73.3% of the project based on the estimate with the contingencies. And that doesn't sound so bad, but then we kind of look back and think about where we were. And we were planning for about 80% cost share with the state, and that left the city with about an $8.2 million local share. And of course, that local share has increased by just about $4 million at this point. And so, we went from 8 to 12. That's a pretty healthy increase. And so as a function of that, we kind of discussed that with the group, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but we think that it's responsible to probably have another public hearing and present this information to the public just to be transparent. And so we'll get into that a little bit, but I want to kind of continue with the project cost discussion and let you know where we're at. So a lot of this information is kind of discussed within the text. We'll continue to refine these calculations and calculate the revised assessments. My assumption is that as we go through this, the assessments are going to go up about the same percentage as the city's local share, which is about 150% for the water or for the sanitary sewer system. I don't think that the water system, based on what I've seen, is going to be nearly to that extent. So the water system would be probably pretty close to where it was. So in the context of moving forward, I thought it was important to kind of provide the council with some information about, what's happening in the world in terms of construction costs and what are other people experiencing and how this might influence or shape how we choose to move forward. And, we ultimately have the ability to choose to rebid this if we think that that's a good idea. We don't have to accept these bids. We could rebid it. We could modify the project scope to reduce cost if we think we do indeed need to. We can try to value engineer it and cut things out of it and kind of keep the same scope. That seems to make sense. We've talked about this with the Sewer and Water Committee and talked about those paths forward. But to kind of continue on the second page of the memo, here is a list of about 9 construction contracts, wastewater treatment facilities that were bid over the last 9 months. And you can see 8 of the 9 were over budget. And the average of the 8 projects being over budget is about 16%, 15.9%. We were at 13.9. So we're pretty close to in line with where the rest of the world is in terms of the things they're experiencing. And you guys all know, you watch the news, we're going through a pandemic. And this has seriously impacted material supply, labor supply, and the cost of commodities and materials. And on our project, specific things that have increased in cost significantly include steel, probably number 1, PVC, probably number 2, cement, concrete, copper, electrical materials, plumbing materials. All of those things go into the scope of our project and do influence the construction costs. So looking at that, talking to suppliers, we're not so sure that things are going to improve anytime soon. Now, I'm not an economist. I have very little training in that area, but talking to the contractors, talking to suppliers, watching the news, doing whatever reading that I can, I don't see this changing fast. And in fact, people are telling me things are going to continue to escalate. And so when we think about the scenario, whether we do rebid this or not, I think we need to bear that in mind. The other thing that I think is important to bear in mind is a lot, I've been around and we've rebid projects and, frankly, the numbers are out there at this point and not very often do you do better the second time around. And so
I was gonna ask you, Joe, what percent of the time in your experience have you rebid?
it's usually if you rebid, if you're gonna rebid, you're probably gonna wanna change the scope of the project. You know, you're gonna pull something out. You're gonna change something significant that's gonna impact your bids. Because what has happened is we bid everything. Now, we didn't, the details of the bids aren't released to the public, and we don't want them to be released to the contractors and the public. But the bottom line is, everybody knows who the low bidders were, and everybody knows that bottom line number, right? And so if you kind of look at how things were bid, which is a really interesting exercise, I would encourage you all to kind of look at that. And compare where the low bidder was to the second low bidder and the third low bidder. And those numbers are very interesting. And in fact, the low bidder to the second low bidder, the difference was $5 million, or just under $5 million. And so that's pretty significant, and it was really on all fronts. The two wastewater contractors, their low bid and the second low bid were pretty close. They're less, maybe $500,000 or less apart. The low bid on the contracts 2 and 3, the sewer and water improvements, there's millions of dollars there. So arguably, that low bid contractor might not be as aggressive next time.
And I think again, the sewer committee did not want to have the project rebid. That was said already, but they definitely thought that was not the best move.
For both scheduling and cost.
Right, and where the world might be going. We're not going, but, so, you know, I think that this is all good information. I do have more within this packet that I want to kind of talk about, just kind of flipping through this more quickly. You can see there's a letter for each of the 3 contracts summarizing the bid. And then there's bid tabulations that I, again, did hand out. I'd prefer to keep them close to the vest at this point. We will send these out after the contract is awarded, so everybody can see them. The contractors want them, but traditionally they're never released until award of the contract. Kind of continuing through this, I'll move through this quickly, but hopefully you had a chance to look through the packet. There's some pretty interesting information. I've had a lot of correspondence with suppliers and contractors post bid talking about what the heck happened. You know, I think I kind of had the expectation that things might not be as rosy as we'd like them to be, based on feedback and knowing what is going on elsewhere in the world and seeing other bids come in on other projects and having to deal with, you know, projects that, you know, you can't get certain things like 16-inch pipe. Can't get it, you know. Those are big deals, and they affect a lot of people, and there are shortages in PVC pipe, for example. They're focusing on making smaller pipe because it takes less resin and there's a higher demand and more use, and the bigger pipes, there's less demand, takes more resin, so they can get less lineal feet and satisfy that demand for less, and so they're not focusing on that. You know, you used to be able to buy a 8-inch PVC pipe for, let's say, $3 a foot, 12 now. And that's not long ago. So where I'm getting at is, if you kind of look at these tables, these are, I thought, really telling. And so the first table, this is from one of my supplier contacts, kind of gives you a sense of where the index for commodities is at. And the first table really deals with metals and metal products, rolled steel. Obviously, we need a lot of steel on a wastewater treatment plant, and reinforced concrete pipe and manholes and all that type of stuff. You can kind of see from June to now, costs have increased. And then when you start looking at what happens over history, the next one, I think that's really telling. You know, the index cost for steel has really been pretty stable compared to what's happened over the, you know, very recent history, and essentially what we're dealing with now. And you look at these graphs and it's to me kind of amazing. And so the next one deals with rubber and plastics and plastic water pipes. And it kind of tells the same story. And then there's some additional information from the contractors in terms of, you know, different indexes and, you know, as you page through them, there's this page here that kind of color codes it if your stuff is in color. You can see kind of the pink ones are increasing and the green ones are stable or decreasing, and pretty much it's all pink. And kind of the same thing goes with some of the equipment that we solicited quotes on for the wastewater treatment facility. You know, we work with suppliers to get quotes to make estimates for cost for treatment facilities and lots of things. You know, for example, this perforated plate screen, you know, in May, the budget proposal from these folks was $183,000. The actual price was $265,000. Those are huge increases that, you know, to an extent, you know, you kind of plan for very modest increases over a short duration, but not stuff like that. So there's more information here. I won't go through it in detail. I have more information in my office if anybody's interested in talking about any of these items in greater detail, but I wanted to give you some context to what was going on in the construction industry and what's probably going to continue to go on, and where this project kind of falls within that realm.
So just to be clear, Joe, I'm assuming, so if we accept their bid and things really go to heck in terms of material costs,
Yeah.
they're still in it for the original bid price.
That's how the contracts are written.
Okay.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
you want to talk about the schedule here real quick?
Yeah, I do want to jump to the schedule. So,
To the resolution we'll talk about in a few minutes.
right. So we jump to the schedule, and as we mentioned, there is a fairly significant increase in the local share from essentially $8 million to $12 million. Okay, so that's a 150% increase approximately. And so that warrants re-engaging the public and saying, you know, things have happened, let's have a discussion, invite everybody back in and have same type of meeting that we had in March. And so my thought is that we could go ahead and do that. This is a schedule, if everybody can kind of see it, for our next steps for the project. And so one of the next steps is to approve a resolution tonight, if it's the will of the council, to have a public hearing. That public hearing would be advertised beginning next week and the following week. And then we'd also send out mailed notices, just like we did last time. With that mailed notice, I'd include that 6-page public hearing handout with all the updated numbers. Same information, just updated numbers. And we'd have that public hearing on October 12th. Yes,
Same
October,
night as our monthly water and sewer meeting.
right. So it's the second Tuesday of October. And then tentatively, we're looking at the earliest, the council to consider award of the project at the subsequent council meeting on October 19th. Doesn't mean to say that you have to award it then. We can kind of continue to evaluate the situation. We have some things to work through with PFA in terms of funding and the loan term and those types of things. We will continue to work on that. I want you to understand that we do have within the contract documents a 90-day award window. So that means their bids are, they have to honor their bid for 90 days after submittal. So the first bids were the 25th and 26th of October. So that 90-day award window ends, I think, about November 23rd. So we have time.
I thought we had to award it in October. From our last meeting, you had said that you had construction start in October, right?
I'd like to award it in October if we can.
But I mean, I just want to make sure I'm not missing something, because we talked about elongating it and you said there was something within the construction bid that said construction to start in October, late October.
Yeah, so within the bid documents, we estimate the start of the award date for construction, the contracts, and in the contract documents, it says October.
And you mentioned in the water sewer meeting that it was kind of a big deal that we issue it in October or before.
I think that I'd like to issue it sooner rather than later, allows the contractors to lock in their prices. It follows the contract documents. We also say that there's a 90-day award window. So that was an estimate within the contract documents. So do we have to abide by that? No. But should we try to abide by that if we can? Yeah, I think we should. It's in our best interest, it's in the contractor's best interest to do that. But can we push this out all the way through that 90-day award window? Yeah, we can. Are there some ramifications to that? Yeah, we'd have to deal with that.
What are the ramifications?
I think the biggest ramifications are on the contractor's side, and especially if things continue to escalate, because they could come back and say, well, we expected that you'd allow this to be awarded in October, and instead it's awarded in November, and prices have increased from, October to November by whatever. And so,
August to November.
well,
From the 25th.
no, from October to November,
Yeah.
because that was the estimated award date. So that's theoretical. Would that happen? I don't know. Are things gonna continue to change? I don't know. They could. That's part of the risk. Is that risk huge? I don't think so, but I think there is risk there. And if we can stay on that schedule, I'd like to do that. If we can't, or we're not comfortable doing that, then we don't need to.
So what's the last date, the 90th day?
The 23rd or well, because the projects were bid on different dates.
So,
So,
so for each of the three?
Yeah.
Okay.
so end of November, essentially, right around Thanksgiving. Yeah. So this kind of lays out what we're looking at in terms of the project schedule, and I think it's a good idea to have the public hearing? I do. I think it's just being transparent with people and providing the information. And then make decisions from there. I think it fits within the project schedule and it makes sense. So that's what I would want to do moving forward.
Have you had conversations with the contractor, especially the wastewater treatment one, about starting in November or December? Do they see themselves doing something this fall yet?
I haven't had specific conversations about when, what their contract schedule is. I think everybody's asking when do they think this, will it get awarded, and if so, when? Because I think that they're anxious to lock in pricing. And of course, the other thing it impacts is there's a lot of work here for two contractors, and they're either bidding actively or they're not. And so right now they think they've got a $20 million project. They're not probably bidding actively because that would be more than they maybe want to bite off at any given time. And so, providing them with clarity, there's a kind of a fairness issue there too. And I try to be transparent with them too. I tell them what's going on from the standpoint of, what feedback we're getting in terms of award, because it affects their business.
So the timing of this October 12th date is at our we have to publish in their newspaper next two Wednesdays. So we need to have it to the News Journal on Friday. So that's the timing that we have to decide.
So to that end,
That plays the
right, to that end, I've prepared a resolution, and I've also prepared within the handout that you got, the document that would go in the newspaper and the document that would be mailed out to the individual property owners, the notifications. So Mike and I kind of visit about those.
We did not include those. Just the resolution and the schedule were included.
Okay, yeah, and those other documents essentially look like the resolution. It's fairly boilerplate type stuff.
Unless there's anything else, Joe, for now, I think that's.
No, not unless the council has specific items you want to talk about, or, you know, obviously, we can do that here, or if you want to call, we can meet, whatever you guys want to do.
Besides Lori and I are on the committee, I guess, if you guys have any particular detailed questions, if you want to give Joe a call and discuss with him, but. we're-
Happy to meet with you anytime.
Thanks.
All right, last item was, what we had was this Riverwood Hills water main looping final payment. And I'll make a motion to approve the fourth and final payment of $1,659.21 to Fitzgerald Excavating and Trucking. For a second.
Second,
All right, this was a due to just all from a year ago. When the project was just. It's finished, that's good to see. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed, it's approved. Okay, thanks, Joe. All right, we'll go back to our next item, which is personnel. And, first item was a History Center rental agreement. In your packet.
I move to approve the History Center lease agreement.
Is there a second?
Okay, Lizzie.
Any other comments? It's $1 rental, which you saw.
Well, if things are going up 150%, I might have to update that dollar.
So. Say no other comments, any other? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's approved. Yeah, this is an FYI, just counselor responsibilities, and it's just, you know, we're the residents elected to this position, and we really need to take the responsibility of reading packets before the meeting. Come prepared, and you know, of course we welcome discussion, but at the same time, we like to have everybody reading the packets. This was an exceptionally thick one this time, but that's a rarity. But just please spend time looking at it, as well as responding to emails you may get from city staff about scheduling or whatever they're asking for. Please make it a daily assignment to check emails to see what you have received from city staff or from anybody else too.
And I just want to add one piece onto there that, you know, it is appropriate if you have questions after you've gone through the packet to email, you know, Geraldine or Renee or, you know, Joe or whoever, so that we can clarify things before the meeting, so that can help move things along a little quicker.
Call or text, whatever's easy for everybody. All right. Next item was a counselor pay increase, adjustment, special meetings. In your packet, Lori had a suggestion regarding council pay, mayor pay, special meetings. You can read that, but the underlying comment with this whole is that the only time we can make salary pay for council pay effective is before the next election results. So essentially, this is a discussion that we can bring up a year from now, effective with 2023 council. So it's an FYI that we do spend a lot of time working on this, both in special meetings and council time. So just as a reference point, right now, our salaries, our group salary for the mayor and council, if we max out our 70 meetings, is like $18,550. So it's about a $10,000 increase to our budget to go to 28,000 if we were to pursue this type of salary increase. Just give you a flavor for what it would take. All right. Next item is a city staff brought to our attention with the holidays coming up. Christmas being on a Saturday, New Year's being on a Saturday, Christmas Eve on Fridays, and
And
Taking
New
this
Year's
holiday
Eve is
Monday
a
off.
Friday.
sorry,
And New Year's Eve is a Friday as well.
right, New Year's Eve.
So taking the Friday and Monday off. Because Fridays are only 4 hours.
The 8-hour pay on Thursday and 4 on Friday, and then 8 hours on Monday. With Christmas Day being on. No, Saturday. Yeah.
It'd be 4 hours on Friday and your Monday. Sorry.
So with that, there's two things, and we'll talk about Juneteenth here in a second, but I make a motion that we approve the holiday suggestion for time off with pay. Everybody will be off probation, so it'd be normal pay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. This year, Juneteenth was added as a government federal holiday. And it sounds like surrounding cities, it's being discussed at the county level as well. But I think that would be a it's in June, right? Third Friday, second Friday, something like that, whatever it falls on.
19.
June 19th.
Okay.
So I move to make Juneteenth a paid holiday for our city staff.
Second that. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Approved. Next item is a discussion recommendation regarding our city clerk role, responsibilities. There's information in your packet, how this would change. We had time to read this. Spent some time putting it together, and I think there was something that was on our desk too, was there? That was in personnel.
It was given out to everybody.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
If I can just comment on it, Geraldine and I have spent quite a bit of time kind of trying to go through things and to help me understand what this would mean and how it would benefit the city. And really, it wouldn't be taking anything off of her plate, but it would allow her to process through things and manage things that don't need to always end up in our packets. So with the title change, it gives her a bit more leadership and management so that every little detail of what happens doesn't have to fall onto the plates of the council. So I know a few other cities that she contacted made changes similar to this. It has really helped the city function at a higher level. And I think especially as we grow, it's important to make those changes along with the growth of the city. So I think it would be a very beneficial thing for all of us. I think for Geraldine to put the research in and understand what it really means is great, because we're definitely missing that piece right now, I feel like. I feel like it would really help us to move things forward as we grow.
So help me understand though, how a title change is gonna help that. Are we saying that she can approve more things that won't need to be on the agenda? I mean, I'm a little hesitant to do that without knowing more of what would that title change
So,
mean? You
Think
know,
of things like human resources, things like there's an issue, coaching issue that needs to happen within the staff. That's something that she could do.
so you're saying you wouldn't need personnel committee to do it?
So.
Smaller personnel
Yes.
things,
Yep.
like if you look at the agenda for tonight, and we also had a personnel meeting tonight at 5. We had 18 things on our agenda because we are having trouble getting people to get together to have meetings because everybody is busy. So it wouldn't be like counselor type decisions. It would be like smaller things that are going through 10 different steps to just get simply handled, or FYI things, you know what I mean? Smaller stuff like that.
It wouldn't be any city business that needs to go through.
Not
council.
city
That
business.
Still goes through council, but more clerical office things that don't have to necessarily pass down
Guess
the
I'm
chain
not
of
understanding
command.
though, how is that gonna change what you do right now?
Because I don't do that stuff now. I should be, it's in my job description, but there's just been a lot of, you know. I don't know, go.
I think
Maurice, go.
it's and correct me if I'm wrong, within the roles that are defined by like statutory city, what this person can do, what this person can do, what this person can do, like we have to have a treasurer. Absolutely have to have her, that would still have to be in her job title. But by being the administrator, the manager, it would give her additional responsibilities that she legally can take care of because it's in the job title.
City of Caledonia did it, and I've been talking back and forth with him for a long time, and I included all that in your packet.
Yeah.
His personal emails along with his job description.
Mhm.
His job description matches mine perfectly. It's just that I haven't been able to like lead or handle some personnel issues that could very easily be handled before we wait a month and meet at the personnel committee. And by then it's forgotten about, or a million other things have happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but does the title have to change to allow that to happen?
If it's already your job description, why aren't you doing it?
Right. Because the
That's
thing
kind of what
that I
I'm
worry
confused
about,
about. And
But
yeah, because if we change your title to administrator, there's a lot that goes along with that. And I would like to look into that a little more.
well, and I agree, because from what I'm looking into, there's more education, I mean, it seems to me that most people have had administrative experience in the municipality that they have a degree in.
not all of them. Most small towns do not. They don't have anything more than me.
And this was brought to your attention.
We visited about this with the council in March. And then that's back when me and Mike Flaherty discussed it a little bit. He was just telling me a little bit about how statutory cities operate and told me to check with Caledonia. I checked with Caledonia, Pine Island, Plainview, Wabasha, Kellogg, all those. So we brought it to our council meeting in March, and then you guys had discussed bringing it back in summer. It of course wasn't brought back. So this time me and Lori visited about it, and I talked to Adam in Caledonia, got much more information on it. We have to have a city full-time staff member handling some of these issues and not all elected officials. It's been an ongoing issue here.
Right?
And I know many counselors have come to me about it privately, so it shouldn't be a real mystery.
Okay, but we've already talked about adding a part-time person.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking, wouldn't that take some of the burden off? Because I would like to look into it a little bit more, because as soon as we assign that role, there could be other things that are implicated with that role, like pay increases, things like that, more vacation, whatever. I don't know everything, but we're looking at budget and we're adding staff already and we're cutting, and we just saw a $4 million increase. I worry about that, and we're seeing other areas where we're increasing. So I think.
And
we
Jerry
need to
Lynn,
really-
are you proposing an increase in salary with a job title change?
I didn't even think about it. Not anything huge. There'd probably have to be something small, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy.
The first thing that came to my mind when I read through all this, and I thought, so how long have you been here?
18 months.
Okay, so that was the first thing that came to my mind. Was that you're fairly new, Renee is fairly new, Keen's fairly new. What if you just took another year to get really organized,
Mhm.
really dig into that job description and take on those roles? And then we revisit this, because I agree with Jim as far as budget wise. I don't know if we're hiring new staff, that this is the right year to make a adjustment like that. And I think that 18 months isn't that long for a very, very big job. And that I'm thinking over the next year, you're going to see yourself becoming more efficient, better time management, all these things. And then hopefully we can help support you in doing the job that's actually in your job description.
That'd be good. Yep.
And I,
Before we make that next step, because I totally think that that is a step in the right direction. I think we 100% need that admin, because I remember thinking, this is what, I mean, when I go to Pine Island, that's what they have, and that's what I think we're going to need. I just think it's too early in your time here for that leap, I guess, is my personal thought.
cause I look at you had mentioned pay increase. I mean, we jumped, we took a good jump here not long ago, and then you've got your annual. I mean, then we would have to do it again. I can tell you, working where I work, that doesn't happen. You know, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
The other thing I would even suggest, based on what I read here, is maybe we have someone come in and take a look and do like a time management study and look at how you're doing things and how things are set up. Maybe we can gain some efficiencies by that.
But it's not a time management issue.
I'm not saying that it is a
It's
time
letting
management.
somebody do their job, and that's not happening.
Okay, so then a title won't change that. Then we need to address that.
From an organizational standpoint, we've added a couple of new roles. Have we looked at, or do we have the clerk, the deputy clerk and the and even this administrator position outlined in terms of I know we have the city clerk, but the job description's outlined and the responsibilities outlined so that we understand, and then you'd understand, not to say you don't, but just to know where one role ends and the next one picks up. Is that, maybe that is an issue? Maybe that's a question. for
No, I have
us.
copies of, you guys are going off of where, I understand you don't know, I don't know what I'm
So
saying.
so what is, we don't, clearly we don't know what's happening. So how as a council are we supposed to approve anything if we don't know what's happening?
Right, and you
I
alluded
guess.
to something,
It
someone's
seems
not
like
letting
there's-
you do your job.
Right, no,
We need to hear
but
that.
there's something going on that we're not being told. And I can't make any decision, and I will not make a decision based on something I'm not being told. So, I don't know. That's where I sit. I guess for now, we just try to support you, but if we're not told things, we can't help you.
Well, I've spoke my mind to both the personnel committee, and I've brought it up in reviews too, so it has been said.
Okay, so we have personnel committee here.
So does it feel like you I'm trying to
I
say
know, it's
things
hard
in
to
an
say it.
appropriate, in
Exactly.
an appropriate way
Mhm.
for you. Does it feel like you get kind of roadblocks?
Yes, steam engined.
But, and I think to their points,
Mhm.
what part of the job title change would help you overcome that roadblock?
Because it gives me more, if you read in the League of Minnesota Cities, we ordered the whole, we got the whole thing off their deal. If you read in it, we're a statutory city, so an administrator has more power, so that doesn't happen over an elected official. Right now, in my job description, I am supposed to lead and manage city staff. I'm supposed to handle personnel issues. That is all already in my job description. Adam and Caledonia's administrator, line by line with mine, is the exact same thing. But I'm not being allowed to do it, or if I tried to do it, somebody oversteps or overtakes. And it has happened 550 times over and over again. I don't think it's in a mean way. It's more of a control issue. Okay, and I'm a strong person, so any of you know me, that know I am strong as oak. So if you can steam engine me, you're good.
So that, I guess, that's where I'm coming from, Jerry.
Right.
I'm not saying.
No, I know, but I mean, you're all
wrong.
going off on something else
No,
and you
no,
got it
I-
way wrong. That's
Because
not,
we
but
don't
I'm
know.
not. Yeah,
I have brought it up multiple times, so
I'm not going
I'm
around.
very,
Right, but I
guess
don't,
my point is, what is the title change going to do? Because that sounds like the major issue.
right.
And
So
that's
if
where
you
I'm
look it
saying
up on League of
time
Minnesota Cities,
study.
it would just push that other situation completely
Okay.
out.
Okay. But also, I think if
but would it?
that time study would
Legally.
surface these things,
Mhm.
you know?
I don't know.
I think too that because we've always talked about this, it really takes, and I think everybody, Mike Babani has always talked about it too. It takes
Mhm.
2-3 years to become a very efficient city clerk.
Mhm.
And I think when the previous deputy clerk left about a year ago, I feel like you've learned a lot in this last year,
On my own, yep.
on your own.
Plus, I
So-
was a clerk for 6 years before, so I'm not
Right.
new to government. It's something important for everyone here to know.
Right. So I work very closely with you, maybe too close in a lot of cases, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, that's all part of learning and how we as a city run too. And I just want it to be a good move for everybody. And I think that good move would come from considering it, next year or sometime when you got that other year of experience. And this other person come on, the part-time person, I think that's gonna help take things off of your plate as well as Renee's. So you two can even act more efficiently than what you're doing right now. And I think that would be just, I think it'd be a better move for the city, but because we want you to progress and Renee to progress, and we don't want to lose sight of the current job descriptions too.
I would say, if there's something that's stopping you from doing your job,
Right,
the council needs to know about it.
not just,
Because we're supposed to vote on something. We need to know about it.
and not just, I feel like it's vague. And like one person might know something, but not everybody, and that's not how a city government should work, is it? It's I don't know.
And
I think a
know
lot of
it's
it is, and
uncomfortable.
correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the way we're set up right now, we have the director of public works and we have the clerk treasurer, and we're still trying to find our ground and how we work together. But at the same time, if we had an administrator, that would help kind of guide both the people down here, and we don't have that yet. And I think that's part of the experience working here with our city and our sewer project and with Public Works and all the things they've got on their plate going forward. And I just think those two departments really just need to kind of get more efficient what they're doing, communicate, and we talked about that at personnel meeting. And I think sometime in the future, there will be an opportunity to go to that next step. And
Yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
I agree. I think it would be great, and I very much want to see that. I want to see things get a little bit more settled and organized first, as far as the new staff that we're proposing. I think it would be really smart to get everybody into their positions and have a very specific, like you were saying, like job description, which I know you all do for them, and then go from there.
And I say too, if you're being imposed upon, maybe we need to do something structurally as well. I know that office is your office. But I think it needs to be talked about. If it's keeping our city clerk from doing, the city clerk and deputy clerk from doing their job, then we need to do something. We definitely do.
Is there anything you'd
I
like to
don't want you
add,
guys to
Renee?
feel like your hands are tied.
I'm choking.
I
I
mean,
think
if,
it'd be good to,
would
you
it help?
spent a lot of time putting things together in comments, just what you did for personnel. I think it'd be good to put a job description together and help. And we talked about, we need to make sure that with administrator title or word in your title, we also need treasurer for the state guidelines to make sure treasurer is in that title as well. Or clerk treasurer or administrative clerk treasurer, whatever the case may be, but we need treasurer in one of our office positions.
I'm gonna ask the question, would it help if Ryland had his own office upstairs?
I don't know.
I'm
just dumb, okay? I just-
I'm looking for answers, but we don't have to answer that now. But
You have a
I
wife to
don't-
answer that for you?
would that work for you?
May not work for you.
I would like to say something. I don't think it's so much as an organization thing. She is
Nothing to
doing
do with
everything
that.
that's in that job description right now. My job is to back her up on a lot of it, plus do some of my own stuff. And we're working very well and things are
Together.
getting done fine. It's more, the administrator would give her the authority to, you know, go through like the personnel. Well, let's just take one off of here. The Tyler training. That's on there. She would be able to just tell me, yes, go ahead and do it. The row ordinance, we could come up with what we wanted to do on that, how we wanted to take care of it, instead of bringing it to you
Instead of
guys all the
discussing it
time
For 6 months.
and going back and forth. That could just get taken care of. We could come up with it. Mike could maybe have to break something up for us, be done. You know, the stuff that still has to go through you guys isn't gonna not go through you guys. Some of this little piddly stuff that comes through you guys and like you're like, why is this on here? Could be taking off because she would have the authority to go ahead and just make these decisions. That's what it's all about. It's not the job duties or anything like that. It's just giving her more authority to take care of some of the stuff that you guys don't need to be always concerned with. It's not gonna change anything on your end as far as what you guys still have to approve. It's just giving her a little bit more authority to go in and approve some of this stuff that's just, it's minimal.
So I have
But-
two things to that. Number one, those things that you're talking about, if we know exactly what they are, can we give you the authority to do that without changing the title right now? So what can we do right now? And then number two, do you guys think that with that part-time person, that will alleviate some of the stress? And I don't want you guys to think that I think you're disorganized in any way, shape, or form. I know you guys are organized. I know what,
We'd be
The
a lot.
part-time person is a separate situation.
Yeah, that has nothing to
That
do
has
with
nothing to
this.
do with her title and her job description. That is completely a separate issue. Right now, like, I just came from a big company and you had an HR per department who handled all of this. Right now, we really don't. We have a personnel committee who we have to come to and get approvals for, but like you said, I've been here 5 months and we've met twice. It's hard for us to get together and get some of those issues taken care of. This would eliminate them having to come in and do all these meetings. Maybe we meet every quarter and we could have our own personnel meeting with her because she's got that title to go ahead and we could get some of these issues.
That's a
worked out.
biggie, is that we're having trouble getting our personnel meetings in monthly. We're doing them now like every 2 to 3 months. So the agendas are getting longer and longer. So many of these issues, if you read my job description and lay it right up next to Caledonia and Plainview's, I do all those things already, Jim. But But
Get that.
I know, but every time I try to make a decision or do something, I get stopped by an elected official or somebody else makes the decision. They want to kind of review every single thing that we do. I was a clerk specialist 3 and a lead at Olmsted County for 4.5 years. I was a city clerk for 3 years. I have my CMC and my associate degree. Do you really think I need to be monitored over the top of me every minute of the day?
And you should,
Because just so you know, it's distracting me and it's causing me to make more mistakes because of pressure. Okay, I'm sick of it and I'm done with it.
so that in itself.
And I have
is a
said
separate-
stuff.
Yep, that in itself is a separate issue, I believe. I'm not saying, please don't think I'm saying that you guys are disorganized. My idea with the time study would be, if we went down that road, that would be on that study. But the other point that I brought up is, can we give you that ability to make those decisions right now? I'm all for visiting this later. But I know if we do this, this is more money. This is a lot of everything. And I, to Dana's point, I feel like we're moving pretty fast.
So then
In
discuss
18
it so I
months.
can do it. You know what I mean? That's, would be nice because it's in my job description.
So that's a good point. So is there the things that you're talking about here without, is there things that we can modify the current clerk treasurer's job description?
My job description's right on. It's letting me do my job.
So it's already saying you can do this, but.
Read my job description. It's in there, yep.
so you're
It's
not
already
being-
saying I handle
you're not
personnel,
able-
HR issues, but I'm not able to. And every single move, and me and her get along great, by the way. Nobody ever asks how this dynamic is going. It's going excellent.
Oh, I see it is.
Hands down, best thing ever. And just to be clear about something else, when I stepped into this position, I stepped into a train wreck disaster. So when the comments get made like unorganized, you guys don't have a clue how unorganized it was when I came into
I'm
it.
not saying you're unorganized.
Okay, so I spent 18 months fixing the general levy and all this stuff. We have moved mountains and we're doing really good. We have a good coworker. We get along great. Let me do my job description. Let me make some decisions. So let me have a personnel meeting if Lori's busy this month and traveling to Arizona or wherever she's
And
at.
why not?
And why not? I don't need somebody to lead it for me and stand over me.
I don't
So,
think the council needs to tell you.
well, and I think that's a really good point.
And I
we
think I've been
talked-
patient. I'm trying.
We talked about it, you know, I think a few years ago about what the personnel committee is for and why we have these meetings and why it was created and, you know, I think that's another piece of the puzzle. Do we need it? Do we need to have this oversight when we have it in her job description that she should be handling these things? So, I mean,
Don't the
Can we take that-
managers handle their own people?
That's how it's supposed to be.
And then if they need, then the managers come together with the personnel committee, right?
yes, but it, you know, interestingly, we wouldn't make any decisions in the personnel committee anyways. It would all be brought to
To
council.
council.
So it's kind of like this oversight that we talk
It's
about
an
things,
extra
and then we
step.
have to come back
So
here
wouldn't
to
it be
discuss.
smarter to have like, you have this budget for education and just like expenses, office expenses throughout the year
Mhm,
to use at your discretion?
correct. And then
Wouldn't
just
that-
do an FYI with you guys, just a
Yeah.
little tip, and it
Wouldn't
doesn't
that
need to be at a council
Wouldn't
meeting.
that be much more useful and would that help you achieve your goals and, well, and help us not have such a long, would that be something that would help?
That's one tidbit, yep.
And I just want to clarify too, that when I say organized, I don't even mean like, because I know how much work you've done to like clean stuff up. I mean like structurally through city.
Yep,
That's what I mean when I say
Right.
organized, not your day-to-day
Right.
thing, not your, because I personally am still so confused
Right.
about the organization and structure, because
Right.
I'm new and you know, 3 of us are new.
right.
And so I don't mean that you aren't organized that way. I mean structurally city-wise. I think there's a lot of organization that we all need to work on
Right, and
as
that's
we
why we
grow.
want a
and-
part-time person, so we do have more
Yes,
free time to do our
yes.
processes, but it would just be
Yes.
great to make some decisions on behalf of the city staff. without
So-
having to go to the mayor and
Yeah.
the vice mayor and all these little extra steps.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just getting sick of having everything reviewed and double checked and Ts and Is. I mean, at what point can you let us make a mistake and learn from it?
What about having in our budget then, like we adjust the budget to have that ability to give them?
We have training line items. We
Yeah,
have-
and I don't think we need
We
to
do.
adjust the budget. They have budgeted.
Yeah, we got everything
We just
budgeted.
need
But we just have to give
to
you.
let her do
the-
her job.
Basically, can I just do my job?
That's what I'm hearing. Let her do her job as it is.
And,
in
and
the
like,
job
if you read my job description, I mean, it's not a new one, it's been
Right.
around forever, it's the same one I had in the county. I'm supposed to be managing staff, leading, if there's a problem, sit down and talk to them, like, to me, I should get that opportunity to do that with staff 2 or 3 times before it even comes to the personnel committee. And then the next question is there even a point at this point to have a personnel committee?
Mhm.
Sorry to be so direct, but is there?
I think.
It's all gotta come to you guys anyway.
Maybe for quarterly oversight or something.
We don't know because we're not part of it.
Well, I mean,
We don't
I
even
think
like
it's
us.
pointless.
I'm not
We're not part
I
of it.
don't know, Lori,
so
how do you feel? I
We
mean,
don't
it's-
know.
I mean, it does say that all the staff answer to the council in the long
In the
run,
long run, yes.
but to this, you need to be able to do your job. Managing the staff that are under you. Kane manages the staff under him.
And I had even suggested having like a 15-minute meeting with Kane every week, a briefing, just to kind of
Why
go
not?
over stuff and why do we need the personnel committee there? I mean, at what point can we just be adults and talk about stuff?
Yeah, you can do that whenever you want. You're not elected officials. You can have meetings whenever you want.
So I think to the point of having a personnel committee, I think it's probably somewhat beneficial to be able to have a go-to if you need
Some
something.
oversight.
I wouldn't even say oversight. I would say Geraldine came
Mentoring.
to a
Yeah, coaching.
fork in the road where she is stuck and she needs help. And so if it's coaching related, HR related, it would go to whoever's on that committee. You know, if there are things that need to be sat down and gone through, but I don't think it needs to be
Is this something that LMC could also help us with? Have you talked to them about? Or have you looked into that?
We've looked into all their stuff about statutory
Guidelines.
cities and administrative staff, and they have a whole thing we've printed out.
Well, but I mean, like, not even just reading it, but would they be willing to help with guidance in this area?
I mean, I'm sure they will, but the bottom line is just, if we could just step back and let me do it. I mean, do we really gotta go to all these studies and crazy antics just to let me do my job? I'm sorry, but I'm just direct.
No, I get it. We hired you to do a job.
Yep.
You should do the job.
I'm not
as
new
your
to
job-
government,
Job
so-
description explains it. So,
Yep.
But at the same time, you are new to this government. And the only person that's been here for any amount of time is Ryland. So when you have questions, where do you go?
If I have questions, I go to Ryland, but a lot of times I go to Mike Bubani. That's who I like to go to because I worked with him before this job.
Okay.
and I think also,
I just want to make, I just want to make sure that we recognize
I think saying,
it's hard.
you know, it was done this way before is probably not the best answer because things were not run well before. So I think, and I'm trying to be respectful when I say it, but I know you came into a large mountain of things that needed to be fixed and corrected. And I think it's important to maybe say, this is a growing pain and maybe there's a little fear of kind of letting go.
That's what I think. I think
Um,
it's, people learned things
Yep.
that they never thought before. So now I'm guarded like a pit bull and it's driving me crazy. So I don't know how to correct it. I just want to do my job. Why is the table vibrating?
Someone's phone.
Oh, it's way down here. I was like, what?
So let's just kind of summarize where we're at. I think it is, and correct me if I'm wrong with my statements, but I think there's a consensus that we need to let you do your job for the description. I think we should wait with any type of changing the title. We have a part-time person coming on in January, hopefully, if we hire one. And I think we need to see how that efficiency works out to allow you to do your job even better when that new person comes in. And that will help continue to grow your experience as well here at the city.
One thing I'll add, I think it would be healthy to add, if you're not being allowed to do your job, needs to be some way that you can raise a flag to bring it to the council members or somebody, so we know.
And that being said, specific. These specifics.
Yes, that's where
Yes.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling with specifics, like you were saying, like I'm direct, but I'm like incredibly direct. Like I'm gonna tell you exactly what it was and the offense and the date and the time.
I know, I just don't like to hurt people's feelings.
Well, but this is a job and this is a city government and it's more important that we get these things right. And so when we're dealing with all this vague, this is what happened. I don't do well with that. I kind of just think, to me, it's almost just like I do so much better with specifics and knowing what exactly is happening. Because I know what I see happening. And so I need to know what is other things that are happening in return.
Okay, just interjecting here, with that, we're obviously, anybody can watch this, so some of the stuff we don't wanna just throw out for everybody to hear if it's stuff going on. Is it okay for us to just send in a blind carbon copy, all of you? This is what's going on, so you guys know, but then it's not recorded for anybody and everybody in this town to hear what some of the issues are going on, if we have some.
Well, it'll be government data once you write that. So it'll be subject to the Data Practices Act, and it'll probably be, it could be private personnel data under 13.43, but it might not be. A lot of that could be public and accessible to the public.
So if it's about an elected official, have at it. If it's about a hired personnel person,
Yeah, I
then you
mean,
have to be more careful.
the question is it private personnel data or not?
Right.
And I don't know what they're gonna write, so I don't know what it is.
So Mike, let me turn that back to you. What do we do in this situation?
Well,
Because
we have.
they need a third party to raise the flag to. How would they do it?
A third, I don't understand that.
So maybe they don't want to raise it to Ryland, or maybe they don't want to raise it to me. Maybe one of us are the offenders taking their time.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying?
So,
We still want them to be able to do their job, and if somebody's in there not allowing them to do their job,
right, so,
then raise the flag.
well, generally, in most cities, the top city administrative official, who in this case is Geraldine currently,
Mhm.
there's a subordinate, but Brandon wrote an email about this, and I don't really understand. We have a labor attorney that's already kind of guided Ryland a little bit on this topic, but generally speaking, the top administrative official, if they have an issue like that, they have to go to the mayor. That's usually, and then your city code would usually have a section called mayor and a section called administrator, and would state that right in there.
Mhm.
So that's generally what happens with, if you're talking about like a complaint. For example, just making, hypothetical, there was a personnel complaint about an employee. That would go to the top administrative official, because Geraldine's a clerk. I'm not sure that's true for clerks. So then it would go to the council or to the mayor.
So if she was administrator, she would be the top administrative official.
I don't want to say that. I just don't know enough about it. It's
Okay.
not like we have 3 lawyers that this is all they do.
Yeah.
And that's because it's complicated and it's not, you could ask their opinion. Brandon's already pretty much given somewhat of an opinion, but you can't do anything tonight.
No,
This would move things
absolutely
along
not.
because you have to amend the city code.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's the best I can tell you. But the Data Practices Act, anything you write down is government data. And then the question is how is it classified? And I don't know off the top of my head, or without looking at it, without, researching, I can't tell you.
So the one thing LMC offers, and we went through this several years ago, is conflict resolution. And then we'll bring in a mediator if it gets to that point. That sometimes helps resolve the issues between a council member and staff or whatever the case may be, but there is that service that they do offer. And if it gets to that point, that's a fallback. It's a sit-down meeting. We have a mediator. We kind of just go through everything and it's just all part of talking about the issues and getting it clarified and finding out what's wrong or how it can be remedied and that type of thing. So that's kind of a side issue if it gets to that point, but that is something the LMC offers outside of just all the documentation that we've talked about here, so. Okay, with that, I guess we'll just kind of let you do your job. Stand back. And at the same time, let's see how January works out. That's the next item on our agenda is a request for administrative assistant for 24 hours a week with no benefits. It's in your packet. I think it's a very vital person that we need in here to help us become more efficient and so I make a motion that we approve hiring an administrative assistant city hall person. That's right.
A second for discussion.
Sure.
Is this something that Lizzie had brought up in that last meeting about the hours? And I know Geraldine had said, no, I can't even find it, but she was really adamant about the hours. But I thought Lizzie's reasoning was super, super great. If you want to just share that, what you had said earlier in the meeting.
Yeah, when we met, for budgeting, I'd mentioned that if we're creating a job, it would be ideal to create a job with hours that would allow more people to apply for it and be considered for it. Something like, a 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Work schedule rather than 11 to 4.
And that was
I like the idea because you could get
for
a
kid, for
mom that
school,
has
yeah.
kids in school.
Yeah. A
Or,
parent.
yeah, you could get a parent, yeah, I shouldn't say mom, could be a dad too. A parent, retired person. I know what was mentioned about, have them later in the day because then you could get everything together. But that's not to say that, could you get everything together the day before and say, okay, when they come in, this is theirs. I'm seeing,
I think you would get a lot more applications and like what we discussed, like we had one application for Garrett's position. And not how many for Renee's, and I think if you're looking to maximize your applicants, I think that would be a really good idea. And I don't think it even have to be 9. I think it could be 10 because kids, 10, and because I know you wanted to get in and be prepared. And that makes total sense. But if you could manage to do it within the time frame of what kids, or when people can get their kids off to school.
so, and I will
So
turn it
let's-
back and say, okay, and if we would go that way, would it hamper the office?
Yes.
And that's the reason
So we have to consider.
I'm sorry, but this kind of
There's-
goes back to what we
Consider
just
that.
discussed, the
Here's a
micromanaging.
classic point.
This
Here's a classic
packet that
point
we,
of how
There's a packet.
city staff has come to us based on their recommendations of what would work best for them. And we're starting, and we all have good points about younger hours, younger people. I think the general consensus is probably because of the hours, it'd probably be somebody that's retired or something. So I think to follow the recommendation, and we could post this thing if nobody responds.
Then change.
Gotta be something wrong. Maybe it's hours, so we look at something different. But for right now, this isn't it's not a high profile management type person, so we ought to just let it go with this and see how it works out.
Can I say a couple things?
Oh, God.
Okay, so, yeah, that just kind of goes back to like people telling us what we need. It's not, I know you all mean well, but you know what? I'm a single mom. And I make it to work every day on time and I put in whatever overtime I need to or whatever I need to do. And never in my life, since working from age 12 on, have I been able to pick my hours at a job. Ever have I picked my hours at a job. And never have I been asked, what's gonna work best for you? Never has that happened since I started my job at 12. And we're not looking for somebody to work around. We're looking for somebody to fill our holes. Most part-time jobs, Jim, you know, are nights, weekends, and holidays.
Mhm.
If getting off at 4 is a big trouble for you, then throw in the towel and stay home. That's how I think about it, you know? We're trying to fill the gaps. We do our financials, our emails, our voicemails in the morning, all of our correspondence with Joe, Mike, Ryland, several emails, high load. When we do our projects and our stuff where we need the help is in the afternoon. We can't get the mail till 11:30 or 12. We don't do the bank runs till the afternoon.
So let me just stop
Yep.
you then.
You can stop
You
me.
proved your point.
Yep.
Point
No, I
taken.
know. Just understand. Now you
No,
know why I'm
yeah,
stressed.
And I do.
Because
and-
everyone's
and I-
telling me.
You know, I think this was a suggestion,
I don't
but
think
if it
anybody's
doesn't
telling you what
work.
to do, Geraldine. We're just bringing a suggestion for
I
you.
understand, but
don't
it's
want
on
you to-
every tidbit. Dana,
But it's in our packet to discuss. So,
I didn't know the hours were discussion. I thought we kind of just laid them out is what I thought.
well, I don't,
On what we
whenever,
needed.
when something comes in my packet and I have a question about it, I'm
Right.
going to ask.
Absolutely.
And when Lizzie brought that up, I thought that was a really good
Right.
point, and that might get you better applicants. That's it.
Yep.
If you don't like it, you can just say that.
Yeah, no, but it's not
And you
gonna
don't
work
have to
with our
take it
schedule.
personally.
I'm not. I'm just
Um,
saying this is part of the micromanaging thing that's, you asked me what was wrong and I'm trying to explain it to you guys.
You can explain it without, I think the micromanage, it's hard for me to understand because like, then what is my job as a city, as a representative of the people of this town?
Is that a shooting?
It's,
Tannerite.
Oh, was it? I'm like,
it's to question what's in my packet.
right,
And if that's my packet,
right.
I'm gonna ask a question about it if I
Right.
have one.
And Jim asked if it would work for us and we said no.
Perfect. But that's where it gets, I'm getting a little bit, I don't know. I don't love I just don't love being asked not to question things, I guess.
I didn't tell you not to ask anything. I just explained it.
So what I got out of it, let me just sum it up and I think we can move on. What I got out of it, we had a suggestion. It's not gonna work for the office. So you guys put it out there. If you don't get applicants,
Right.
then it's up to you guys to
Switch it
change
up.
the hours.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really hard now. When CJ was here, we got our mail a lot sooner. Now it's like 11:30, 12
Yeah.
before we even get the mail, which is lunchtime. And then by the time she enters the water payments and I prepare the AP and the bills, it's afternoon. And that's when we need help for the bank run, the post office and all the other stuff.
Mhm.
We don't need the help in the morning because that's just when we're responding to our emails and our voicemails.
So I think Dana seconded it with the discussion.
Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of the motion for the hiring of the assistant, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next items are just FYI's agenda bullet points. Discussion about sending out a weekly agenda, bullet points for discussion for the council. What's your thought there?
That was my.
Lori.
Lori, okay.
That was my thought, that versus going through all of the meeting details for specific meetings or committees, that maybe the representative from each committee throw out, 3 to 5 bullet points of what happened, so it can condense the meetings a little bit and we're not discussing our committee meetings. And I think we're doing a good job of it for some of our committees, and I think for other committees, I think we just need to be aware of how much time we're spending at the council meeting on committee.
What ones do we discuss? I'm
I think
confused because I don't discuss
Yeah.
parks or first responders, or we don't discuss Gold Rush. So what?
Yep, and so things like water sewer, when we come back to the meeting. And this was really a suggestion with Ryland and I, that we have, 3 or 4 points, maybe Joe has 5 or 6 points, 5 points if we can do it. Obviously, there's gonna be nights like tonight where we need to go into more depth, but really trying to condense. And a lot of times it is with water and sewer that we are literally sharing the same information that we shared for the sewer committee. And so trying to make sure that we're reading our packets for those committee meetings and then we're
Is it,
not having to rehash the whole meeting. for
is it
our
important though
council.
to have it, for some of these things, to have it on, discuss it in front of the city, like not just us, but the city, for the city to see, keep seeing here?
They're all recorded. They're all on Zoom.
Right, okay, and now we're uploading them again.
No, it's done.
It's done, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I just
So
wanna make sure, like, yeah, I agree, and I think we could bullet it, but I just wanna make sure, like, some of these definitely, and I know that water and sewer does it this way, but planning and zoning doesn't, so you cannot hear other people. If you've ever listened, tried to listen to one, they run it off, he used to anyway, run it off his computer, so it's not run off
So maybe we need to.
the sound, do you know what I mean?
Reevaluate that so they're all done.
Yeah,
Why
like our
can't I,
last meeting when he was talking about the budget off my laptop.
yeah, so you,
But that was a,
planning and zoning,
a step on our part, how to record, I guess.
Yeah, that one didn't work.
oh, not the budget meeting, I'm talking about planning and zoning.
Yeah. No.
Jeanette, Paul runs it off his laptop, so like when I've been listening on Zoom from home, I can't hear when other people are talking. So I don't know, just to make sure that we're still getting all the information out there and.
And like I said, I think we do a good job of it for a lot of the committees, I think. For things, I mean, obviously, we're gonna have times where we have to have long discussions about things, but to keep the meeting length a little bit shorter. That was just a suggestion that I had.
I want to jump down to the software, IWORQ software is on our agenda, and it's a software package, it's in your packet, but it's something that was brought to city staff's attention by a gentleman. And it's a software program that staff would like us to consider and add in the budget. It's a $3,500 a year, but it's more, it's to help streamline the efficiency of permit management, which is building permits and all the different permits that's uploaded. I don't know if Geraldine or Renee want to make a comment about how it can be used with city staff.
I will comment since I'm the one that took the initial call on this one. It's called iWorks. As you can see, they have a lot of different components that you can add on to this. Right now, we are proposing just using the two that we would use and be more beneficial, which is the permitting and the ordinance ones. They are gonna take the GSI map, put it into a map for us. We can go in, we can click on, a property, it will give us the legal description for it. We can tag on there, we had tall grass violation at this time. Building permits can all be added into, so like lately I've been getting phone calls from realtors, can you tell me all the building permits that have been pulled for this particular resident? Then I've got to go back through all the different files and look to see which ones have been pulled and when they were and this and that. Where if it was in the software, I could click on the housing and all of the permits would pull up for me and tell me exactly when they were done and what they were. Like right now, we haven't voted yet, but pet ordinance or pet licensing, when they're expired, all I have to do is click expired license. It would fill, it's got a template in there with a letter. It would take all the addresses, print them off for me, and then I just have to send them out. All of this stuff would be done. It would cut down our time a lot. Kane would be able to use it to put in notes for what's going on with water and sewer. If he needs to check on certain things, he can go through and do all that. He can also see which houses we've tagged as, violations and whatnot. So building inspectors can use it also. They can help keep track of where they're at on different building, where it's at in the permitting thing. Is it finalized? Is it not? Whatever. All of that will be controlled into that one software. So it's not going to benefit just us. It will benefit a lot of the other entities that we run into.
So, and I've seen that before, and it is good.
Have you?
My question is, do you have to pay for each service? Or is it all one?
This is for the two.
This is just for the two.
Okay.
Permitted and licensing.
Okay, so then you do have to pay for each,
Mhm.
so it's not like you get 3 in this one and 3 in that
Right, and
one.
then they sync the Olmsted County like GIS map and all the zoning maps.
Mhm.
They'll put all that in, set it up, put us all through the training like Kane and Jim and me and.
So do they put all your stuff in, like your permits?
If we
and
want them
your-
to, they can go back, we can decide, we wanna go back 5 years, or we wanna do this, or we can decide, nope, we just wanna get up and running and we're gonna start entering it from this state.
Right.
We have the decision, basically, they said, I told them we wouldn't be in the budget until next year. They said that's fine, they're willing to wait until January to start it, they would just like a signed contract if we're gonna go for it, stating that this is when we're gonna start it.
I've seen it, I think it's cool, especially.
It was, we were
utility
intrigued.
bills.
We had no
Yeah.
idea like what it could do for Kane. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these like little note sections on the map, like, so when he starts doing locates and stuff for the sewer project, there's all kinds of stuff we could print out, send with them. Or he's actually talking about getting a laptop, or maybe we could somehow sync them, so he can have it
Yeah,
his
it's a
hands right to
software
the
that you would
pickup.
be able to log into and use
Mhm.
any of that too.
It was cool.
And you can add services as you go,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
like à la carte.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
like à la
Yeah.
carte licensing and stuff, yeah.
And do you know any other towns? Like, did they reference any other towns that
Yeah.
currently use it?
Albert Lee.
Was it?
Albert-
Okay.
Yep, we called Albert Lee.
Okay.
And they named one of the cities. I can't remember which one. like
Yeah, I know they
Lakeview.
named a couple,
A
but I can't.
reference of a city of our size. That was the only thing I was a bit skeptical
What
of.
was the one? It was out west, western Minnesota.
Yeah, he named off a
Pipestone?
couple, they weren't.
I think Pipestone's a littler town, maybe just a smidge
North
smaller.
Branch. was another one.
North Branch, yep, North
Yeah.
Branch, Pipestone, Albert Lee, and then something in the cities. I can't think of it.
Would,
I think the thought too is
would
just,
there be a comparable technology solution to evaluate against this one from a competitive standpoint?
We just got approached.
I looked, there is a couple out there, I reached out to them, nobody really got back to me.
Huh.
They didn't do exactly what this one did,
Or-
but yeah, there is some other options out there.
Okay.
yeah, I think it's a great stepping stone for just going forward for our city, for sewer and development growth and everything, so.
I just make sure the data that we have, that they're telling us we would be able to give them and make magic with is going to be ingested like by the platform, because that is tall order.
Right.
It always makes me a little nervous when people reach out versus you shopping.
Yeah, did he call?
I get
me?
that a lot for Gold Rush. I get that a lot. I get that almost every week. Carol gets it and then I get it. She's gonna send it to me and I'm like, no, thank you.
We
So-
did like a demo and,
Yeah.
you know.
And they are
Okay.
willing to do a demo for you.
They
guys,
said they'd
too.
come to the council meeting, but we had asked Ryland and he didn't think it was necessary, but they said they'd come and do a slide. show.
Okay. And I think the important thing is there's towns that use it. That was
Right.
what I was said,
Yes.
is like,
Right.
just,
And you can go to their website and you can look and they have some
Yeah, I did.
listings of some stuff.
I did a little bit. I mean, yeah.
Trust and verify.
So I make a motion that we proceed to approve effective January 2022, the permit management software, code enforcement management software for the annual fee of $3,500 a year.
Well,
Whatever's in
it
the.
says grand total due year one is
Oh,
67.
don't look at that.
Don't, they cut it in
They
half.
cut it in half.
Okay, got it.
That's what I thought. I thought
Yep.
a couple different
Yeah.
numbers.
Thought I-
2500?
Yeah, I think it's like
Oh, there we go.
35.
Yeah,
3,500
35.
annual with
Yep.
no setup.
yeah,
Yep.
they took off the setup fee.
Yeah.
So that doesn't count either.
No, go off of the email
So
that
what's
we
the item now?
updated.
3,500.
3,500, okay.
There's one another.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any other comments? I think it'd be interesting, the planning and zoning software, sewer management software, there's also
Mhm.
a lot of good things in the future for us. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain? Okay.
Um, couple FYIs, but we can get back to those next month. But we have a couple ordinance or three. An ordinance and two resolutions. First ordinance is 2021-07, which is our pet ordinance. This we've been working on a few months. So we've got it, hopefully everybody's had a chance to read it. A marked up copy that was sent out and also just a printed copy of all the changes. So I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-07.
Second.
I do have one question. Sorry. In section 91.090. It says purpose, blah, 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 keeping up to 4 hens in a manner that's not a nuisance, which is fine. But then in 91.094, we say a maximum of 5 hens are allowed at one time.
Yeah, Mike, you're gonna change that.
Is there a reason those should be different?
I
No,
can't find it. 09 what?
91.094, performance standards.
and then 91.090, there's two, they're just different numbers, they just need to be.
94. Oh, I'm almost certain I changed that. You brought that up. Dana brought that up in her email.
So 91.090 should be, it should say 5.
Yeah, I understand the issue.
Oh, that should be fine.
I mean, I fixed it and I'm almost pretty positive I fixed that when you brought it up. So it makes me wonder if this is the correct version. You put the version that was in the email I sent?
That's what I thought I did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so it's 5, not 4.
Mhm.
So you can approve it with amending 090 to say 5 hens. And then we'll have to change.
Proof, agree to the friendly amendment.
Then I got a question on, I'm trying to find it, I marked it here. And it was about the property line, let's see, here we go. Because it's saying 8 foot off the property line.
Which section?
Let's see, maximum.
91.094, it says 10 feet,
Yeah, 91.094.
point G.
Yeah, it says at least 10, I'm sorry. I was 8, but I don't think our ordinances, and I actually have to look, I don't think other things have to be 10 foot.
Yeah, I mean, you can change it to, what are you referencing? Like what kind of things?
I think we did that specifically to make sure.
Well, and I think we said so far from a building, you know, because of smell and everything, but
Right.
10 foot off the property line, if you have someone with a smaller yard,
Right,
I mean,
they might not be able to have chickens. Right,
what's that?
they might not be able to have chickens if they have a smaller.
Yeah, but I think 10 foot off a property line is quite a bit.
Sure, I mean, you can switch it to whatever you want. That was just, you know, that's what we drafted. That was the point of the review and sending it out, so people can make those comments. And certainly, if you want to do less, that's fine.
Because I'd have to look at the P and Z, but I think we have like 4 and 6 in different situations.
I think the P and Z guidelines is a sum of 16 feet between the two sides. Like for a
You
house,
probably have a setback.
sum of,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you must have a 10-foot side yard setback, meaning you can't build your house right on the lot line.
right.
right,
You
you could
know,
build
so at least 10 feet.
8 and 8 or
Yeah.
10 and 6 or.
So,
I just think
yeah,
10
I mean,
But there
that,
may be a minimum of 6, that's what I'm thinking.
well, different cities have different amounts. Sometimes it's, I've seen 10, but it could be something else.
I know like fences are 6. And I think if the neighbor disagrees, I think, or it's 4, and then
Right.
if neighbor disagrees, I think it's 6.
Yeah, so that you can change that if you want. I mean, you can make it 5 feet instead of 10 feet or whatever, or whatever you think.
Yeah, I would set it the same as a fence. You know, because we have a setback for a fence.
Chickens are different than a fence.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get it, but
They can be loud and annoying. I think that's why.
I
this
feel
is-
like we discussed this a long time ago and why we came up with that number.
It's been discussed.
So you think there's an issue with the 20 feet from a residence? You know, because if there's like a 10-foot setback, and I don't know what your setback is, let's say it's 6 feet setback, you can't build your house 6 feet from the lot line, which would mean you couldn't have the chicken coops 14 feet from your lot line to make 20 feet from a neighboring residence, in theory.
Right.
If you have a big backyard, could go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, we have some people that have a big backyard.
Right.
And can do 10, and some might have a little bit smaller. That's why I'm saying, if we make it the same as a fence,
yeah, I think that's a policy issue for council to decide. It's not a legal issue.
or the maximum for a fence is 6.
One of the things I learned from planning and zoning so far is that we can always change these things and revisit them after we see what happens when we put them into practice. And I'd be willing to do that at this point, just because we've seen this for 6 months. And I have seen 2 roosters in town too.
You didn't just see them. You caught
Found
them.
3 during gold rush, so.
This is true. I think I should get rooster wrangler added to my list of
They own roosters,
accomplishments, where they were not.
Oh.
Yeah.
wild roosters.
Well,
Yeah,
They
it's
were
it's a mystery. It was during Gold Rush and it was quite the ordeal.
But I mean, I do believe it should be the maximum of a fence. I mean, because this is actually more, right?
Right. I understand.
I mean, it's 4 foot beyond the maximum of a fence.
Yeah, when we drafted, we looked at other cities. I don't know if we copied verbatim. I don't remember now. It's been so long. We looked at a lot of ordinances, so. Yeah, that's just, I mean, that we sent this out for review so that those could get fleshed out and I mean, that's the review process. This is kind of like the final version.
I get it. Let's just.
But she's right. You can, you know, what might be do is you do it for a year. You see if somebody comes and asks for a permit, they can't get one. Then you can go in and switch it to 5 feet or
Mhm.
whatever, you know, whatever the fence amount, or I think that's a good way to go at this point, just, you know, or if you want me to look into it, I made notes on other things I have to do. I could try and find where that derived from, like why we use that number. And I mean, I would tell you if I knew, I just don't remember. I mean, it's been 9 months, so.
We can have that discussion when the complaint comes up.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments?
I'm concerned that we won't be able to enforce it, and I appreciate the work that we've done in redrafting the animal ordinances. But I'm concerned we wouldn't be able to enforce chickens.
I don't know why you think that.
We'll have a party with the first chicken permit.
I mean, Geraldine, you need to add that to the
Your
Okay.
first,
job description.
your firsthand
Oh,
experience.
no, I'm terrified of chickens. I didn't tell you guys that.
You're
No, I'm
terrified of
terrified of
chickens or
chickens.
roosters?
All chickens, anything with feathers. So no, I'm not. That'll be Kane's job.
This is a voice vote.
The
so
rooster.
rooster patrol. All those in favor by voice vote, signify by saying aye.
I
Aye,
I
opposed?
Nay.
Nay, okay. Approved. Okay, the second one is our tax levy. So out of our workshop meeting, we had a lot of good discussion and kind of bounced around between, I mean, there's, so the idea, again, just to remind you, is just people that we're looking at we're looking at the top number of our preliminary tax review. And so we're looking at a tax number that's high that we're gonna hopefully walk away with tonight with our resolution. That is, and we'll continue to have this workshop discussion about it. As an example, last year, I think we started out with a preliminary budget of 980,000, but our final one was like 937 or something like that. So this is the time between now and December, when we do set the final one, that we'll go back into the budget itself and start looking at it very closely to see if we want to reduce it, which is all great for our tax rate. But tonight, we need to identify what is our top limit and go from there. So I think my takeaway from the workshop was that we were looking at we talked about 100,000 CIP, continuous or capital investment plan. And Lori had a comment in an email back about 84,000 and how we could remove things. And yes, it did lower our allow me to pass up 2 sheets here. So what did I summarize? And she also asked about summarizing the department percentages. How much does the departments change from 21 to 2022 budgets? And I think that will help identify. So there's a sheet for a $84,000 CIP, and there's a sheet for $100,000 CIP. Pass that to Lizzie. Good job.
I don't think I will.
So. Looking for, make sure 100, okay, that's the other set.
Thank you.
Here's the other one for the 84.
Hey, Renee.
So if you look at the first one with 100,000, we talked about you look at the tax capacity from 2.434 million to 2.463. It's about a 1.2% increase in tax capacity. That's the property taxes coming to for our city for revenue, or that's what's available to us. Yeah, okay. So we had a general tax levy of 885,552. That's up at the very top under 2022. Compare that to our current this year, 852,102.
That was for meeting minutes.
So within that 885,000, we have 100,000 CIP. That's considered to be an expenditure. We transfer it to the capital investment fund. And that's a 3.9% increase in our general levy. Total those figures up, our total levy comes to $930,597, which is a tax rate of 0.378. Compare that to this year, 0.368, that's about a 3.78% increase in our tax rate. And when you look at that tax rate, if you look at the point, and that's the dollar figure increase of 896,000 to 930, that's 3.78. If you look at 0.368 to 0.378, that's a 2.7% increase. So if you go to the second sheet, which is a comparison by departments, 2021 to 2022, we had about a 7.7% increase with the 100,000 CIP. And you can see in there that salary increases that we implemented here effective earlier this year. And if you look at a 3% increase for staff on 1 January, you can see there's some big salary increases, and rightfully so, along with the health benefits. You look at the financial administration, we have, which we have to document and account to about $75,000 will be part of our American Rescue Plan coming to us. as well as if we were to look at a CETA contract for 1 day in the office every other week. CETA's Community Economic Development Authority, which we talked about as a possibility for us as we go forward, helping us with our developments. The developers also working with grant writing, also working with finding grant funds that are available to us. That's one of the services that they offer that we really haven't taken advantage of. Today, we've hired them on an hourly basis to write grants for us, but they would be there to offer continual awareness of grants. They have offered to come to an October 19th meeting and give us a presentation of CETA and what they do with cities our size, what they have done. There's cities smaller than our city that has a CETA. And they also help develop a economic development authority as well, which we think would be a good asset to have going forward with our sewer project and the development that's going to come from that. And there's a sheet in your packet that identifies that some of them have every day and they're quite a bit more expensive. Sorry, Joe. There you go. Some of these affect you as well. So seal coating, you're gonna pass that, Joe. And one for Mike too. I'm sorry. There's no seal coating scheduled for 2022, so that's like a $64,000% increase or decrease. But then we get to the parks, community center, and the ground maintenance. We're looking at, we have salary increases that go into the increase of from last year, this year to next year, plus a new public works person, which we talked about at our budget meeting as well. So if you look at, and then there's a decrease in some of the Orinoco Park and a decrease also in our CIP from this year, $227,600 to $100,000 in this particular case. So if we look at our tax capacity, going back to that 1.2% increase, we look at an increase of 7.7% of our expenses, and come back to our general levy and tax rate, it's in the 3.8 to 3.9% range. So I think that's a good indication that we look what we have, we look at our expenses, and we've come back to have a modest increase. If you look at the the 84%, I'm sorry, the 84,000, which was what Lori was suggested. It's about a $16,000 decrease. And so in the case of the 84,000, it's the same 1.2% change in tax capacity. The tax levy drops, our general levy would drop 2%. The tax rate, the dollar figure from 896 to 914, 500,000 is 1.9%, about 2% increase. If you look at the tax rate ratio, 0.368 to 0.371, that's about 0.8%. Pretty flat.
Where are you?
This is on, I jumped to the 84,000 one.
Yeah.
So the rates are in that orange highlighted, the percent changes. The 1%, the percent that's not on the chart is the one I mentioned about 0.8. That's the difference, 0.368 to 0.378.
So, but you have the 84,000, you have 1.99 increase with 120 CIP. That's wrong. I should say 84, right?
Yes, that's it. Yes, you're right. That's, I had 120 in there and it should be 84. Both So it's the highlighted in the middle where it says 1.99%. That should say with 84,000 CIP. One thing I missed. And if you look at the second sheet, the very bottom, that's a 6% difference. 6% increase in expenses. And again, that's because we've reduced our CIP compared to last year by $140,000. So we increased salaries and that, so it kind of balances out, but. So,
How come the adjusted tax capacity is the same on both sheets?
because that's the same, I'm sorry, the 2020 adjusted tax capacity. The 2.463 million.
Yep.
Yeah, that should be the same, because that's independent of,
Okay,
that's
got it.
independent of how we use the funds.
Oh, okay.
One thing I started thinking about was after our meeting was inflation and how we should really take into account that things are gonna cost more this year in 2020 than they did in 2021. So that I just want to make sure we take that into account in our budget. And we've already seen that obviously with the water and sewer bids. So while I want to keep things like they were, I just think, are we being naive to think we can?
Well, so one thing to keep in mind is that when we went through the budget, we looked at our expenditures through 1 September. So we still have October, November, December. So we still have 3 months. If we want to look at our budget on a monthly basis, if we look at November or October, November, even the 1st of December, all of a sudden something pops up that we didn't take into account. And we just missed it for our 2022 budget for whatever reason. That's the reason we want to set it high, so we can take care of those fluctuations.
But then to Lori's point, when we set it, is our tax. That's what people are assessed. So.
And that will happen in December.
In December. So
between
once we
now-
Okay,
vote on this, this is saying, once we set the budget, it can't go above this number.
okay, but
So
we can get lower.
We can do it down.
we can go lower.
Okay,
Which I agree with. I think to your point, Dana, in my reviewing everything, and we kind of talked about it at the budget meeting, knowing that project costs are so high, the other part of me says, let's just not plan for a gazebo or a remodeling project that we could put off a year and hope that things go down, so that we're not planning to buy things that are more expensive this year than they may be next year. We may be foolish because we may not ever get the gazebo because the costs keep going up and we could have done it cheaper this year, but I'm just, trying to be responsible with other people's money. What can we do? If we set it at 120, that's fine. We can go down, but I look at it as, I don't want it to give us the idea that we keep it there.
Right.
And it's like, if we have it high, have it at 120, and then it's like, oh, we really want to do this, oh, we really want to do this, and we have the money to do it, we did set the levy, it makes me nervous setting it to a number that we realistically don't need, just in case. But
Every bit affects the levy.
I agree.
You're right, and that's the risk we take by setting it too low too.
right,
So-
it's a double-edged sword, and so I think from my responsibility, it's like, okay, I saw 3 things that I could see. Let's just table this until next year. And we have lived without this for now. Let's just live without it for another year type of a thing, where it's not going to affect the daily work within the city. That's why I pulled those 3 items out.
From, I think it was mentioned, gazebo.
Was it chipper? Gazebo, chipper,
gazebo,
and
Yeah. Chipper, gazebo, and,
was it picnic tables?
Maybe picnic
Yeah.
tables.
I think, well, we talked about a lot.
I just talked to Kane, I reviewed with him yesterday. And we understand the chipper.
Gazebo. Oh, community center furniture
Yes,
and the
Oh, yeah.
chipper. That was the 3 things. Furniture for.
and we lowered
community
that to 15, I think, or 40. That's what I'm
20.
proposing.
20, I think I put in there, 20 for the furniture. And then the chipper and then the gazebo.
So I,
And I don't even know that we need the 20 for furniture, talking about what we really need, but again. Rather we need a desk.
Yeah, I think Ryland needs a
the
desk
only thing
now.
that the 20,000 could be used for, if in fact this whole thing doesn't work out with the 3rd person in the office, is
Yes.
to provide a chairlift.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
For people to go upstairs, so that's kind of the iffy
We
thing.
need
So,
that access upstairs, yeah.
okay, so 100,000 CIP, is that, are people comfortable with that?
yes, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
100,000 CIP? I
We
think we all
read
have.
120 and we said 100. And that would be getting rid of those 3.
86 would be getting rid of those 3.
Okay.
So if we do 100, then that leaves us a little wiggle room to
I like
adjust
that.
as we.
I like that.
And I think there is some areas that we can spend time and discussion about and go through this thing, so. At the same time, we'll see how our rest of the year expenses are coming in. too.
Okay.
I think because we're saying 100,000, all we're agreeing to is we don't specify that CIP, if we find out something, it may we take care of their other expenditure items, we may find out that transfer is only gonna be 90,000. Or maybe 80,000 because we have to adjust these other line items. So there was a resolution, this 21-23 that was typed up, is I think that was on there. In front of you there for 930,597, so. I make a motion that we set our preliminary to approve our 2021 tax levy.
Did you say 9:30?
Can you say the amount again, Ryland?
930,597.
I've got 9.
Do the 120.
Okay, there was a sheet on your table.
Okay, so 930,597, and that's with 100,000 in the CIP, right, Lori?
That's with the 100,000.
Yep.
CIP.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? I think those are all excellent comments, Lori, and I think we need to take those to heart as we go through the budget and there's no doubt it'll be lower than this, but how much, we'll see. By voice vote, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Next item is resolution 21-24, which is what Joe was proposing. Statute just had this resolution and,
That's for the public hearing,
I'm sorry,
for the
for the public hearing, yeah.
hold the public
On
hearing.
October the 12th.
I move to approve the resolution 2021-24, resolution calling second post-construction bid opening hearing on improvement.
Hold on.
Pause,
You have to add it.
sorry. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, I panicked for a minute.
Could you repeat that again, Lori?
I move to approve resolution 2021-24, resolution calling second post-construction bid opening hearing on improvement.
Public hearing, right, okay. At 6:30. And there's a second? I'll second it.
Sure, second.
Any other comments? I think this is, as Joe mentioned, to be transparent with our citizens, because it is a big change and affect our assessments, and we need to make sure it's clear what has changed or is changing. Comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by voice vote.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
it's approved. Parks and Trails. So there's an arborist tree removal estimate approval for $2,050 for trees. Warnaco Park. Tree stump removal. So I'm going to make a motion to approve arborist estimate for $2,050.
Second.
Second. Any comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. FYI, Zumbo River restoration is going to start this week. Happening all over the west side, so company from Elgin will be starting that project. Has to be completed by December. Public Works. Request from Kane for a mower. It's for $14,393. This is a new mower. And we talked about this at the budget meeting. A third mower would be tied to 3 people mowing. Today we mow 3 days with 2 people, 2 mowers. 3 mowers, we'd have 3 people for 2 days, which gives 3 days, 2.5 days of work to be done by the people that are not mowing and be able to take care of items that need to be taken care of from the public works that are not mowing. So question came up and Gavin is capable of mowing. So we have Gavin and Donnie between Jim and the new public works person. They would be mowing on the Monday and Tuesday or 2 days that's not raining. But the other 3 days would allow the whole staff to be taking care of maintenance items and things like that that needs to be done. They would also be, so then we'd be in a rotation every year, over a 3-year period, where we rotate all these mowers out. And they would still be low hours and still fall into the category of getting the discounts that we were getting with 2 mowers that we were rotating.
Is there a reason that we should buy it now at the end of the season versus next spring?
Okay,
Yeah, the money's been budgeted to purchase it this year. We were going to trade one off, but now we're gonna keep it. We're going from the 2 mowers to 3 mowers, so this year we don't have a trade-in.
so there's like $3,000 difference between trading a mower in and buying the new one, so 4,000. We trade in a mower. Get a new mower for the other 12,000. If we're buying the mower outright.
We're buying more outright for 14,393.
That's a quote that was in your packet.
Yep.
And it looks like there is money in the budget for that.
So I guess we're looking for the third mower and it just makes the public works a little more efficient in completing their work also the rest of the week too. We do their own maintenance, sharpening blades, whatever the case may be. They're not always mowing, but they're always cleaning them every night, checking, sharpening blades when necessary, that type of thing.
The other thing that we talked about today in the personnel committee is they are mowing more than they ever have been because they started mowing right of ways, which they hadn't been doing. So we had kind of talked about in our budget meeting, why is it taking longer than it used to? And I think that was a really good point that because we were like, well, the park sizes haven't changed. Why is this taking so long? And so that's I think a good point for all of us to understand that it's taking longer because there's more space, more grass to mow.
We have a lot of joggers and bicyclists on those roads that have the added right of way mode, and I think they probably appreciate not having weeds right beside them, what's going to come out of the weeds, and so. It looks nice, but I think people appreciate it as well.
And I think it's safer in terms of deer too.
Oh,
True.
yeah.
With that, I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of the mower for 14,393.
Second.
Second. Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Also request for, with the three mowers, we don't drive the mowers over to the west side of the highway, so we need to trailer them. So this larger trailer would require three mowers, or would be large enough for three mowers.
Yes, the current one's not big enough.
I think there was a traded value we get for that trailer too.
Yep, there's another quote. You guys should have it there, Central Trailer Sales.
Oh, new one.
The staple to the mower quote.
Yeah. So we could trade our current trailer in for the $1,000 you see on the quote. We could, another option would be we could try to sell it outright, or we could take it to an auction. And try to bring in even more money. Kind of set a reserve, what we don't wanna, what we're willing to take. I think that's an option we can do. There's a couple auction houses local. Or we could just go with the Central Trailer Sales, the quote I have.
From a time, from a time perspective, just for you, I mean, I know you have a lot on your plate, so trading it is probably the fastest option.
You bet.
Are we better off?
We don't need this trailer until really spring. I mean, we're gonna get this new mower purchased now, get the trailer purchased now, this year's budget. We're ready to go for 2022.
Mhm.
And you might get closeout pricing.
Never know.
You think you could get more for that if you sell outright versus trade in?
I do think so. I've seen some of the auctions and similar trailers, and I think $1,000 is low.
Is it like a car trailer?
Yep.
We get Jim to paint it?
Yeah.
We'll get it money back. Okay.
price would be.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the new 22-foot trailer for $4,299 and get as much as we can out of an auction.
I think 1,000 would be our minimum.
Sure.
Everyone's comfortable with that.
Second,
Second,
any other comments? Or how much longer is this one?
4 feet.
4 feet, okay, it's not a big enough. All right, you need a- Oh, so you can come up on the side of it too,
You can, yes.
the ATV size, that,
Yep.
okay.
I don't know if our mowers will fit because they're so wide. All three mowers.
60 or 70?
It's 84 width,
I mean, what size are the more deck?
72.
72, okay.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Training. For some wastewater training.
Yep, there's wastewater training available in December. I would like to go gain my wastewater license, my D wastewater license.
Yeah, I'll move to approve in attending the conference, training.
Training,
And
I'll second that.
we need to approve an amount because it says $390 for the class and then lodging and meals. I don't know what. We need to set an amount for that.
I think you can just put that in.
We have we pay for the class, but
Okay.
the return expense accounting, that's covered with our budget line items.
And the only question that I have is in this packet, it says November 16th.
go a little higher there. Should be December.
Oh, right here, got it.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Um, All those in favor of the class, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. We have a tall grass violation, third letter sent, no change, so we just need a motion. I make a motion that we have Power Public Works mow the lot. And bill the property owner.
Second.
Comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a Minnesota Avenue Sunram Construction, a payment due. Number 2, payment for $21,032.81. Make a motion that we approve this payment.
Second for discussion, I just had a question. Did the issues get fixed?
Contractor's been notified. No, not all of the issues have been fixed, but the payment has retainage sufficient to have somebody else do it if they, for whatever reason, would refuse. They'll do it. They haven't done it.
What's
I
the
would say
issue?
we hold it till they do it.
I don't,
This isn't final payment.
It's not final payment.
Oh.
We're holding back fairly, thousands of dollars in retainage.
how much? 15?
No.
Oh,
Look at the pay request. It's right on the pay
I'm gonna say
request in terms of,
okay.
but that's how
As
the.
long as we have some holdbacks for it to get done.
What are we talking about? Issue?
Last month, Jan gave
There
us
was
a
a
list.
couple things.
Jan gave us a list.
I'm sorry, the one.
Last month, Jan gave us a long list or a list of items that weren't done.
Jan or Jim?
Jan, the wall, this is for the wall, right?
We talked
Right,
about
yeah,
the
what
boards at
are the
other
items?
Exposed.
There was a pipe that was goofed up
There's a
or,
pipe on the fence rail that has some kinks in it that needs to be replaced.
We talked about the boards at the other end, because it doesn't tie in like the other end does.
They
I,
didn't put those in.
that's not anything we're gonna fix.
I wouldn't think so. I
Irv put those in.
think they're
Irv put those in.
fine.
I thought they said the contractor put it in.
No,
Irv put them in and he painted them, kind of shadowed him.
I think they're landscaping type.
So we
no,
just
I meant
leave it.
just, I meant the structural issues like with the pipe and
Yeah,
that's all I meant. It's, I mean, it's not like they're gonna tear it down and redo it.
I'm not asking for that.
Done.
I'm not asking for that at all. I'm talking about the end. We all agreed that it didn't look like the drawings, that it doesn't step down or go into the bank like it does on this end. And then there had to be boards put in.
it doesn't look exactly like the drawing. The contractor did make a few modifications. We essentially
Did we agree to
got,
that?
we essentially got slightly more than we paid for in terms of the square footage of the wall. It seems like a reasonable solution in my estimation. I don't know.
So you're saying we got more wall than he
We did.
contracted for,
Slightly more. Mhm.
but then does that mitigate not finishing it off on the other end?
My opinion, it's finished off. And is.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
but if you, that's my
I mean,
opinion.
if you look at the other end, I don't believe it is.
Okay.
Really.
All those in favor of the payment number 2, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
Approved. Okay, it's getting pretty late. Would anybody object to finishing? Look at the agenda real quick. I think we're gonna spend some time talking about the speeding, the right-of-way tree ordinance, the word tree was left out. Planning and zoning, Stan Tech, no, I'm sorry, the planning and zoning accessory. Oh, wait, you have a public hearing request for planning and zoning, is that right?
Rylan, before you dig into that, didn't you add something to chlorine pumps to the agenda under Public Works?
Oh, I'm sorry, we sure did. There's 2 chlorine, thank you. I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the 2 chlorine pumps for $600 each.
Second,
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Oh, there's a public hearing to change some less square footage. Request was for a public hearing in October. This was in about the lot size regarding allowable square footage for combined accessory buildings. Planning and zoning wants to have a public hearing, so I make a motion that we approve public hearing the October 14th meeting.
Second.
14th or 12th?
any and zoning.
Oh, planning and zoning.
So we need to make sure that published and everything. Okay.
5 public
There's
hearings.
possibly 5 public hearings next month, just so everybody knows.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Approved. Rest of the agenda, I make a motion that we move those agenda items to the October agenda.
I second.
These would be items
Did you want
from
it?
VI to the, VI through VI number 8.
Do you want us to talk about speeding or are we switching, are we changing that too?
I'm sorry.
We're gonna push speeding.
Are we pushing speeding as well?
On streets and roads under J, and then there's 2 and 3.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We're gonna push those 2.
So we're gonna move the right-of-way ordinance to October. And then items under petitions, requests, Stan Tech, professional planning, unfinished business, city newspaper options, new business garbage company issues, Presbyterian Church retaining wall, and LMC liability coverage. And those are FYI, so there may be some discussion there.
And speeding.
And speeding, yes. Is that clear what we're gonna move to October for a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
We didn't. We do the Riverwood Hills final payment? We did, okay. Thank you.
The second for consent.
Yep.
Favor, signify by saying aye. Make a motion to adjourn. 40. Second,
Second.
all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. There's a huge agenda. Glad we got through it.
Egyptian licorice from Yogi.